Liftoff! Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flighting down to SC off. Bring in SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Hello everybody, welcome back to some live coverage from Starbase, Texas. We are spooling up the live stream for a potential booster for cryogenic proof test as SpaceX is moving into more and more testing ahead of an orbital flight test for Starship and Super Heavy booster in Boca Chica, Texas. My name is Thomas Burkhardt. I'm a news director here at NASASpaceflight. I'll be bringing some commentary for today's stream, and I'm joined by a couple fellow NSFers. We've got Ian Atkinson, writer, reporter, video narrator, live stream commentator. He's had a couple hats recently. Ian, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Thomas. How you doing? Glad to be here.
I am doing well. Also, we've got Nick out here on commentary, one of the locals out there in Starbase. Nick, how you doing today?
Hey, I am doing fantastic. Hoping to be a little extra chilly as it's 70 degrees down here in Boca. If we see some cryo tests, that will put us all a little bit more in the holiday mood with some chilies.
Absolutely. You can see we've got some vapors there at the bottom of Booster 4, which is giving us the prompt that cryogenic proof testing should be underway, and we'll be keeping an eye on the test as it goes through this afternoon. We've also got a couple other familiar voices you may hear chime in. We've got Das hanging around, working some robots and things. Das, if you want to say hi.
Oh, I should be here right now. I'm not allowed to be on streams anymore. They just keep me underground in the cellar working on more cameras. They haven't brought out the whip yet, so anyways.
And of course, pulling the levers and pushing the buttons to operate this stream is Michael Baylor as always, so you may hear Michael chime in every once in a while as well.
How's it going?
Going well. As always on the NASASpaceflight stream, while we continue to keep an eye on Booster 4 as it goes through its cryo-proof test today, we'll also be taking some questions. So if you have any questions about Starship, about Boca Chica, about Starbase, go ahead, throw them in the chat, tag us with @NASASpaceflight. We're going to be going through as many of those as we can, as well as just keeping you updated on the testing. The road is closed and the pad is cleared down in Boca Chica, and you can see those vapors in and around the base of Booster 4, indicating that testing is underway. So, why don't we start off with some questions here? We've got a few starting to come in. We've got one from Stefan asking, is Booster 4 at this moment already fueled through the QD at the bottom of the launch table? Haven't seen any footage of it being connected. What's the status of those QD, the quick disconnect systems?
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
So go, Nick.
Okay. All right. Well, it's really hard to get an angle of that. Just between the berm, you can just kind of barely see that there at the bottom between those methane overflow tanks. There's this berm that's kind of next to Highway 4, and that berm really blocks all of our views of that QD hood. However, there are a few slight angles there that do give you a good look at it. It's looked like I've seen it connected before. I'm not sure if it's connected right now. But it has been connected in the past, and I'd imagine that if they wanted to test out all these systems, they probably would be using the QD hood at the bottom, but that's conjecture. There you go. Thanks. Was that Das? Who's drawn?
Oh yeah. Wait, who's got the DOS art? Is it Michael? That's probably Michael. Appreciate that.
I think we should make a guess. Chat has to be able to tell who is drawing.
Good grief.
Is the goal to not be able to tell, and that means that Michael is doing well enough to pretend he's DOS?
Impossible.
Yeah, that's where we're looking. Impossible. Keeping the questions rolling here. Next one from Matthias asking, what is GSE4 doing there? Hasn't been doing much in the last weeks. Is it doing so? We're talking about that test tank. Is that the one very bottom left of this view?
It should be.
Yeah, so I don't believe we've seen a lot of activity there. There's been a couple test tanks in and around Boca Chica, and there you go. Thank you. Yeah, these are all mostly likely structural test articles of some kind, but we haven't seen much testing of them. They've been focusing on Booster 4 these last couple days. they're likely for testing different manufacturing methods for the different tanks, or possible slight design changes to make them stronger. If you go back far enough, there were those 3 mm thickness tank sections, the stainless steel, that were 3 mm thick instead of 4, and then that like disappeared. And we get questions all the time: when are the Starships going to be 3 mm thick? But we don't really know. The test tanks may be informing some design changes for that, things like that.
Yeah, and with GSE-4, it's actually neat because this tank was not built recently. It was built back in, I believe, the summer to do qualification testing for the design of the GSE tanks. It did its testing, it looked fine, it got rolled back to the production site, and now it's back for some reason. So yeah, it's strange why they brought it back. Like maybe they want to requalify something. There's a problem with the tank farm and they want to figure something out. It'll be neat to see what they do with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's been funny to see all of the different test tanks that they've been bringing down there. Like 2.1 was down there recently, along with 4, and it's just kind of hard to keep track of all of these little test tanks that they keep bringing around, using those to test out all of. And they just made Booster 6's header tank and base were like all connected or something up to make Booster 6 test tank. That thing is all the test tanks down here. I mean, it's almost like they're testing the stuff out.
It's almost like... let's see. We do have a question here about how can we be sure that this is a good proof test and not a static fire test. The reason we know that is because no overpressure notice was delivered when static fire testing occurs, as we get a big vent from the orbital launch mount there. As we get into static fire testing, they have to put out notices because static fires can result in what's called an overpressure event, which could be a danger to the surrounding area, so they have to send out those alerts to the community. Mary, being a Boca Chica Village resident, would get one, and since she has not gotten one, we know that this is just proof testing and not a static fire test. It is also logical that we would see these proof tests preceding the static fire test. Once they complete a proof test, then we might start thinking about static fire testing.
I really love the term overpressure event. It's like they go out of their way to avoid the word explosion.
Yeah. Here's a question from Andrew, and I'm going to throw these to the people, the Starbase experts, which is admittedly not me. The people who have been involved in the update videos and, of course, are out there themselves, such as Nick. Andrew is asking about weld lines which disappeared on Booster 4 earlier today, and wondering if that's an indication of pressurization before cryo loading. Any idea what Andrew's asking about?
I have a guess, but hopefully Ian has a great answer.
Yeah, so one of the ways that you can tell that they're either getting ready for testing or doing pneumatic pressure testing, where they just simply pressurize a vehicle, you'll see dents and the weld lines, because when they weld something, it'll usually sort of fold in on itself a little bit. It won't be perfectly flat. You could tell when they pressurize a vehicle because the dents and the weld lines will become sort of puffed out and become flat. It's not extremely noticeable if you're not looking for it, but if you compare, say, a few hours ago to now, you might notice the weld lines and the dents have all been flattened out.
Gotcha. And that's one of those benefits of kind of stainless steel too, and pressurized materials to begin with, is that if you get, some nicks and bumps, you can kind of buff those out by just pressurizing the vehicle, because that's what actually gives it a lot of its strength.
Yep.
Which we talked about on a recent episode of NASASpaceflight Live with Peter Beck, talking about different materials for rockets. And by the way, if you haven't seen that episode, check it out. Unless you're a really big stainless steel fan, and then maybe don't, because Peter is not as big a fan of stainless steel. Anyway. Moving on. Next question here. A question from Chase asking, will static fire need structural support from the arms, or will launch mount clamps suffice? Love your channel. Well, thank you, Chase. I'll take that one because, generally speaking, and there's kind of two sides to this answer, the launch clamps have a couple different purposes, one of which is to actually hold down the vehicle until all the engines are confirmed to be firing nominally, because that way, if any engines don't ignite properly, you can shut them all down and abort the launch without the vehicle ever leaving the pad. So part of those clamps do have to withstand the forces of launch, of all engines running at full thrust. However, that would also assume that there's a Starship on top, because you're not going to launch the booster all by itself. Now, they could have design the launch hold down clamps to be able to hold down just the booster for the purposes of static firing, or they could come up with another way to help weigh the booster down to make sure that it will be secure, such as just simply putting a mass simulator on top, or otherwise securing the booster with some extra supports. It depends on how they design those launch clamps, and I don't think we know for sure one way or the other, but either way, there's a couple different methods. If you look at McGregor, for example, sometimes you'll see there's a cap on top of a Falcon 9 booster when they're static firing. Because again, normally there's an upper stage, there's a payload on top. So when they're testing those boosters, they kind of tie them to the ground basically with really long tethers. They could do something similar. There's a couple different mechanisms you can use to help keep a booster down during static firing.
Yeah, and as a photographer, I would really hope that they stick a Starship on top of it.
Or they could just do that for 2BP. Yeah.
Those would be some epic pictures. We've seen some of those really epic-looking Starship 20 static fire pictures that Elon's tweeted out. We'd really love to see one with a full stack, and then, flamies at the bottom.
Yeah. We've got a couple of super chats, some support coming in here from Space and Dogs saying, y'all are amazing, the coverage is top notch, thanks for all that you do, y'all have made my year special. Well, thank you, Space and Dogs, thanks for the support. Also, Tristan with some support, thank you for chiming in. And then Paul with a question, why wouldn't a proof test possibly create an overpressure event? Well, we've actually seen this before. If a cryogenic proof test goes not well, it's kind of the opposite of an overpressure event. You could almost call it an underpressure event because the vehicle kind of crumples in on itself. It's not a big release of energy, really. The only thing that gets released is the cryogenic fluid, which is usually just cryogenic nitrogen. So there's not a big explosion risk or anything from a cryogenic proof test. That only comes when you're loading the actual propellants, which can actually ignite and create an explosion. So it's a relatively low risk test. A question here from Starship, I'm assuming is what this name is short for, asking if we could talk about the advantages of the 3 extra Raptor vacuum engines on Starship. So if you have missed it, Elon Musk said recently on Twitter that they were looking at adding 3 more vacuum Raptors on Starship for 9 Raptors total, 6 vacuum and 3 sea level. And that would actually coincide with stretching the Starship tanks a little bit so they'd hold a little bit more propellant. And that is as simple as it would increase your delta V. If you have more thrust and more propellant, that results in the vehicle being able to change its velocity more. That's that delta V term that we throw around sometimes, and able to deliver payloads to different destinations. And sometimes it's a result of, well, if we add more propellant, we need more engines to lift that propellant because it's heavier. So sometimes it goes that way. But yeah, it would simply increase performance by increasing the thrust of the Starship vehicle.
And honestly, I am just so excited to see a 9-engine Starship. Like, what? That's going to be so much fun. And it's going to get taller, too, which is going to be even crazier. Because if you guys recall, when they built Mid-Bay, the original idea for Mid-Bay was to be able to stack Starships in it. But by the time they finished building Mid-Bay, Starship had grown too tall for Mid-Bay. And so now what they do is they stack all the ring sections, and then they make the nose cone somewhere else, and then they put them both in high bay, and they stack them together in high bay because there's more room in high bay. And I kind of wonder if they're going to have that same problem again. Make them taller.
I'm actually wondering, since they're building the wide bay now, if the high bay would become for just Starship stacking then.
Honestly, I'd imagine that would be accurate, because if you look back at pictures of how tight it is after they do a full stack of a booster inside of high bay, it is within a meter or so of clearance to get that booster out of there. Which you got to remember, the booster's not just the booster, it's the booster on the transport stand plus the SBMT underneath it, plus all the equipment that they need. So it's not just the booster's height that they're worried about. They also have like this equipment factor that they got to factor in there that they obviously didn't factor in enough when they built high bay. So I hope that wide bay is slightly taller than high bay, but we shall see how high wide bay gets. My goodness, I almost messed that sentence up, but I didn't.
And I didn't want to interrupt Nick's answer there, but as Michael has ever so gladly pointed out, we have a frost line at the bottom of Booster 4.
Ooh.
So another sign that
Hey.
cryoloading is most certainly underway. The cold propellants, which are going to start pooling at the bottom of the tank, is literally going to make the outside visibly cold, you know? And so loading definitely underway. And a question asking that if is it liquid nitrogen? And yes, that is usually what they use for these original proof tests because it's nice and inert, meaning it doesn't ignite. So if there are any leaks or any problems during the test, you would just get a nitrogen leak, which is pretty harmless. They do this prior to doing later tests with actual fueling with propellants, the methane and oxygen, so that they already know there's no leaks in anything in the test before they load the more dangerous commodities. The next question here from Murdoch asks, do we know if they have solved the heat shield fragilities seen on static fires? So talking about the Starship portion, we've seen some heat shield tiles fall off from vibrations and things like that, which is to be expected when you're developing that heat shield design. What's the latest we've seen on Starship 20? I believe they've patched up that heat shield pretty well, right?
Yeah, it seems like they did do because yeah, like you said during testing with Ship 20, the vibrations did shake off some heat shield tiles, but over the past few weeks they have been replacing those. And as of now, there's been no further testing attempted with the repaired heat shield, but I'm wondering if we'll have to wait till they stack it on top of Booster 4 to get some testing with that, or if they're going to do another static fire test of just Ship 20 by itself.
Gotcha. Let's see here. A question from Ted asking, how soon do you think we will start to see chopsticks testing, and what might that look like, and how would they test the vehicles on them? That is a milestone that we're definitely looking for as they work on getting the ground equipment ready. But this might just wander into wild speculation. Any speculative timeframes for when we might get to see those arms used for stacking or other testing?
Yeah, well, I would caution against any wild speculation because I was pretty sure a while ago that they were going to start messing around with them. And we're here in December now, still waiting. But there is scaffolding all the way up the tower, basically from the QD arm all the way up, that's on each of the main tower kind of corners. And those are blocking the chopsticks being able to go up or down. So until that scaffolding goes away, we can't really move the chopsticks that high. Now, maybe they'll move them, pinch them or move them up and down a couple meters, but it won't be anything super impressive until that scaffolding is gone.
Interesting.
Yeah. A follow-up question from Jason asking, or just saying that I assume that they'll need to remove the metal scaffolding around the launch tower prior to a static test. Would that be a sign that they are ready for static fire? I'm not sure they would need to be removed for a static fire because they don't really need to use the tower for any of that. Now, for stacking operations using the chopsticks, absolutely. Maybe even not even for launch. Can the QD arm move with the scaffolding where it currently is?
Yeah, we have seen the QD arm move
Right.
a little bit, both pinching and swinging. It's really, I mean, the scaffolding can be moved away in certain spots where it needs to be.
Yeah.
But wholesale, it's still there.
Yeah, so I think the big thing the scaffolding is in the way, like you said, is that chopsticks movement, but not necessarily static fire testing and things like that. A question from Leonard asking, what is the farm at the production site currently producing? Are they using nitrogen out of the air or maybe oxygen? I'll open that up to you guys.
Ian, do you know?
Well, we know that they're producing at least oxygen there because we've seen them take trailer loads of oxygen from that site to the launch site. Now, nitrogen, I'm not sure. I think we've seen in their planning documents or their applications to expand upon the site that they have talked about nitrogen and eventually methane, but I'm not sure if they're producing nitrogen yet.
Yeah, and really that all just comes down to energy that they can get, like electricity that they can get to Starbase. And I know I've seen some discussions in the NASA spaceflight forums of the new power lines that they're installing down Highway 4. I'm not sure if it's SpaceX or the city or who all is installing them, but there's some pretty hefty power transmission lines coming in down Highway 4, which would enable them to consume more electricity at Starbase. And really, that would be the holdup. You know, I don't know how many megawatt hours it takes to make a tank full of LOX, but it's not a small amount.
Some more support that has come in here. Stuart saying Merry Christmas, guys. Appreciate that, Stuart. Rough Rider Show, thank you for the support as well. Cliff saying you guys do a great job explaining all the testing and ship construction. Keep it up. Well, thank you, Cliff. Appreciate it. And then Stardust saying thank you to Michael for putting that notification for the commentated stream in Starbase Live today. Yeah, if you guys are watching the 24/7 feed over on Starbase Live, which also has some additional camera views, so if you've got multiple monitors, feel free to pop that stream up as well. But yeah, whenever we spool up a dedicated commentary stream for a specific event, we'll throw a message over there so you all know we're bringing up an extra bit of live coverage, which we tend to do for these cryogenic tests as well, and that's definitely engine testing and things like that. We have a question asking about when Raptor 2 will start to be installed on boosters, maybe looking at Booster 5 or Booster 6. What kind of evidence have we seen maybe in the thrust box and things that might indicate when Raptor 2 will begin being integrated with these test vehicles?
Well, we do know that Raptor 2 will be used on the 33 engine boosters. And we did actually see yesterday and today a 33, or well, actually a 13 engine booster mount rolled outside the tents and then sleeved for a future booster. So it seems that Raptor 2 is coming soon, based on seeing that engine mount being worked on.
And to clarify, when we say a 13 engine mount, that's the center part of sort of the engine configuration for the Super Heavy booster, right? Because that is in addition to 20 more that go around the outside, which means a 13 engine mount is for a 33 engine booster. Do I have that right?
Yes, that's right.
I was very confused about that for a long time.
Gotcha. Yeah, so
as far as
the old
Raptor
design
2
only had room for, what, 9? Because
Yeah.
then it was 29 engines, so...
Yep.
And we actually saw recently well, yeah, we saw that design because that's the design on Booster 4 as 29 engines, and we saw that clip that Elon tweeted of the thrust vector control test, the engine steering test, which hilariously kind of just looks like a Falcon 9 configuration. You have one engine in the middle and 8 around the outside in sort of an octaweb configuration, and those are the 9 engines that all gimbal to control the booster, whereas the outer 20 are fixed. But that has been updated to fit some more engines, so that the total engine count gets up to 33. Ben asking, didn't they have to reduce the height of the booster so it would fit in the high bay?
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that.
Yeah, I remember with Booster 1, or actually BN1 actually was its name, they had to cut off a ring from one of the tanks in order to stack it to fit inside of the high bay. So yeah, they did have to make the boosters a bit shorter. And that's one thing I'm wondering now with the wide bay. Elon did say it would be a little bit higher than the high bay. I'm wondering if they'll stretch the booster as well, or if that would be a pain dealing with, say, moving the QD arm on the tower or whatever.
Ah, that's true.
Like stretching Starship, there's really nothing above the engine section of Starship that would have to be changed with the launch tower, because the
Right.
QD arm is always going to be in the same place. But once you stretch the booster, you have to move the QD arm, and we don't know if it's really modular or if it's sort of just intended to stay there.
Also, still seeing some message in chat asking about potential static fire. This is definitely not a static fire test. This is only cryogenic proof testing based on the lack of any static fire alert notice being put out to Boca Chica residents. So we are only expecting them to fill Booster 4 with cryogenic fluid, specifically liquid nitrogen, and use that to test for leaks, test the ground equipment, things like that, as a predecessor to fueling with actual propellants and getting into static fire tests. And on that approach, we have a question from Pascal saying, do we expect a static fire with all engines together next? So once they pass cryogenic proof testing, I think it is safe to say that they won't go to all engines at once immediately. They could start with as simple as a single engine or 3 engines. Remember, they haven't fired more than 6 Raptors at once at any given time. If that was on Starship, on a booster they fired 3 Raptors on booster 3. So that was booster 3, right? I'm not crazy.
Yeah, that was booster.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure I wasn't forgetting that. Oh no, they did it on booster 4 and then added more or something. So yeah, 3
I'm sure
engines on
it was
booster
called
3.
EN3 back then.
Geez, all right, let's not get into naming conventions.
Ugh.
But yeah, so they'll probably more logically sequentially get up to more and more engines. Firing 1 engine, 3 engines, maybe they'll do the central 9, add the next ring, and kind of work their way up to doing all 29 engines. Firing in different subgroups and things. That would be, I think, what we're expecting. But again, this all depends on successful cryoproof testing, which is what we're watching today. A question from Mist asking, why is some part of the booster corrugated? I believe we're looking at the small intertank section. If you look slightly above halfway on the booster, you can see a section that looks a little bit different. It's not quite as smooth. That is where that common bulkhead is between the 2 tanks, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I believe the term is stringers that they use there, and they're actually extra pieces of metal that are welded to the ring section that helps stiffen it and provide a little bit more support.
Gotcha. We got a question about here on the Space Coast. Alan Rose asking, will the new Starship pad at 39A be built in the same location they started at 2 years ago? So they did do the bare minimum start of work on a Starship launch pad in 39A, but they have since dismantled that because, of course, they've gone through the same construction process here in Boca Chica, and the launch mount design has been updated on that, and they're likely going to take that design and use it at 39A as well. But that's not to say they may not use the same location kind of off to the side of the primary mount that's used for Falcon operations at 39A. They could use the same location. We don't know for sure, though. We haven't seen official plans for how they're going to design that pad yet. So we'll have to keep an eye on possible construction updates and also look out for any documentation of their construction plans and things like that, or stuff that SpaceX releases. So to be determined on that. I think it is safe to say they will use something kind of off to the side from the mount used for Falcon operations, though, because they won't want to interfere with Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launch operations, especially Crew Dragon and missions, things like that. A question to get y'all's thoughts on, asking, isn't the tank farm tremendously exposed in case of a mishap on launch or booster return?
I mean, kind of actually, yeah. If there were to say be what we called earlier an overpressure event on the pad, where say the booster or a ship exploded, then yes, the tank farm is pretty exposed. But also you see the white coverings. The white shells are not the tanks themselves. Those are insulating shells over the actual tanks. Now, how thick that metal is and how protective it is, that I do not know, but those could possibly provide some protection for the smaller debris, or for ones that aren't going that fast. But that you can see they do have a dirt berm that they built between the pad and the tanks to stop any debris during liftoff from hitting the tanks. But I think we'll really just have to see how resilient the tanks are.
Yeah, and I think something that, especially when you're looking at a telephoto zoomed in view like we are right now, those tanks look right next to the booster, but they're a good 1,000, 2,000 feet away from the booster's launch mount. And while that isn't all the space in the world, it is enough where it's not right up on there. And you are totally right. Like the actual pressure tanks are inside of these big white sleeves. And those pressure tanks are literally Starship segment rings. They're just standard 9 meter 4mm steel. And if for some reason something pops, I'm sure they can whip some more out pretty quickly. So, yeah, they are fairly exposed, but yeah, they're far away, and they could make more pretty quick.
Yep.
All right. Next question from Muffin asking, have we seen any grid fin testing?
Not that I'm aware of, actually.
Yeah, not that I can think of.
Yeah,
I mean,
So,
for what it's worth, they have now 100 Falcon landings of grid fin testing. The design is pretty similar, different scale, but they have plenty of experience flying with grid fins, but a little bit different than the Super Heavy design. So we haven't seen that testing yet. I wonder if, I mean, they may have tested like the motors that run them. They don't need, that wouldn't be the most visible thing, especially if they just did it before they actually installed them on the booster. But the big testing, of course, is going to be in flight when they actually attempt to steer the booster with it. So, not really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we would see it when we get closer to launch because, yeah, like you said, the motors on there, I think they're even Tesla motors. I wouldn't even be surprised. But they could definitely test them on the ground, like, say, inside the tents or whatever before integrating them. And they're relatively a simple subsystem. So testing them wouldn't really take a lot of time. It wouldn't be a big event.
Michael asking, is it possible to fill the booster all the way up for cryo? I mean, they made those liquid nitrogen tanks this big for a reason. So talking about basically, does the tank farm even have the capacity to completely fill a booster with liquid nitrogen? Do we know?
I don't know about nitrogen, but I have heard that between the LOX and the methane, the tank farm should be able to support 2 full stack Starship flights. But I don't know about nitrogen.
Interesting. I know that they do have 2 nitrogen tanks. 2 of the tanks on the right are nitrogen only. And based on their size compared to a booster, maybe. Again, that is a complete guess, literally judging by looking at them. But they might be able to. Barely. I'm not sure, though.
I want to point out, oh, and thank you, Adrian. See, Adrian caught it at the same time I did. If you look at the methane tank, which is the top tank of the booster, frost is starting to form there as well. In fact, more frost, I think, than on the liquid oxygen tank on the bottom.
Very cool.
That is some good signs.
So, again, we're watching a cryogenic proof test of Booster 4 at the Orbital Launch Complex in Boca Chica. They're filling both tanks with liquid nitrogen to test for leaks and things like that. And we can see the visible signs of that as frost starts to form on the outside of the vehicle. Now, this is the second kind of cryo-proof test attempt that we've seen. They tried a couple days ago as well. And looks like they only got part way into cryo loading that time, so maybe they're looking for a more complete test today. Of course, we don't know officially. We're kind of speculating based on what we've seen, but yeah. Got some more support coming in here. Space Beetle joining as a PadRap member, so thank you, Space Beetle, for the support. Moldy Space Industries with the Thomas Fan Club, and When Dynamic Fires. Yeah, Dynamic Fire is just another word for a launch, I think, but appreciate the support. And then Alan says, do you think if I send my £5 super chat to Elon instead, we could get him to build Pad 1A here in Scotland? You know, I think it might take more than £5 financial incentive to build a Starship site in Scotland, but hey, if they're going to do Earth-to-Earth things, probably need a spaceport in Scotland somewhere, so we'll have to wait and see. Thank you for the support there, Alan. Next question asking, what do we think the future of Booster 5 is?
Huh.
I don't know. It looks like it has as much of a future as SN16 does, but I'm hoping that they find something for it to do.
Yep. Yeah, like maybe they could do, because with B2.1 we've seen, they have like a jig on top now where they're going to like run wires down and then compress it. Maybe they could use Booster 5 for that? I'm not sure how much extra data that would be or how useful it would be, but maybe that could be a possible future fate of it. But yeah.
Yeah, it is just so sad because they create all of these starships and boosters and they get outdated so quickly. Like poor SN17 and 18, I think. They had like 2 or 3 rings and some tiles done, and then they were just scrapped. And 416's just been sitting there. It's like, man, they move so fast that things get outdated before they're finished.
Yeah, but the good thing is when they do scrap vehicles, they can recycle the majority of the steel on them. So that's always nice. They become real starships in the end.
This is so true. That is almost all recycled. It's very fun to see them haul that stuff out in the recycling trucks, knowing that it's still going to make the stars one day.
Yep.
I got a question here from Carson asking about how cold Warp Booster 4 get during the test. I did quick bit of research. As a starting point, liquid nitrogen boils at about negative 196 degrees Celsius, or negative 320 degrees Fahrenheit. So at least that cold. However, they may chill it even more just as a result of they need to simulate whatever temperatures the liquid oxygen and liquid methane are going to be at, which they may be densified to a certain extent so that they have the right energy requirements in their actual tanks. So while we don't know exactly for sure, that gives you an estimate. Pretty dang cold.
Wouldn't want to eat ice cream made out of that.
Probably not. NASASpaceflight not responsible for getting too close to liquid nitrogen. That methane tank getting super frosty. The LOX tank not so much, but unless we're just seeing less of that LOX tank because some of it is kind of in the mount, so maybe we just can't tell right away.
Yeah, there's a lot in the methane tank right now.
But that methane tank that frost line is definitely growing.
Down at the bottom, the LOX tank, there's those COPVs, and they have some foam stuff sprayed around it, and then they have like these metal panels that they've installed. So it's definitely possible that the frost line on the LOX tank is just as tall as the methane one, but we just can't see it because there's equipment between us and the tank.
Yeah.
True.
So we'll have to just keep watching, of course, and if we see them both continue to grow, then they're definitely loading both tanks. We've also seen, and I'm going to forget which Starship prototype it was, but the one that failed during cryo testing, wasn't it a result of they loaded the top tank, but not the bottom tank, and thus the bottom tank wasn't at its full strength because it wasn't pressurized properly?
Yep. Poor SN3.
SN3, yes. So, of course, we think they have learned their lesson from then, so that should not be a problem. A question, what will SpaceX use to lift Ship 20 on top of Booster 4? The chopsticks or the current SpaceX crane or something else?
Well, I mean, the current SpaceX crane is not tall enough to lift Starship on top to Super Heavy. So they would probably, if not certainly, need to use the chopsticks to lift it on top. Unless they brought some other crane in or they were able to do an extension onto the SpaceX crane. But again, I'm not really sure that the SpaceX crane could support the height and weight needed to lift the ship on top.
Yeah. From what I've seen, the crane boom of the new SpaceX crane and Franken crane are actually interchangeable. But yeah, I would say chopsticks is way more likely than SpaceX renting another Franken crane-sized boom to stick on the top of SpaceX crane. It's way more likely to use the chopsticks.
All right. Question, why is Booster 3 still not completely scrapped? I think your guess is as good as ours on that one.
Yep. It's very weird how it's been like almost 6 months now, and it's still sitting half dead on the pad.
Another question from Sebastian. What are your predictions on the first orbital test of Starship? I honestly hope that all goes well. Hope they can learn a thing from it. Also, do you think they will stack again soon? So the first orbital test, obviously, that's the point of all these ground testing campaigns, is to prepare for a flight test. And as far as predictions go, when you make an orbital launch attempt, you need to have some level of confidence that you have a chance of reaching orbit successfully. Obviously, you always know there's high risk. Obviously, this is a very large and complex vehicle, so the risk is higher than maybe with some smaller launch vehicles on their first flights. However, SpaceX also has plenty of experience going to orbit on different vehicles, so it's not worth discounting that. My personal prediction is that they will not have any problems reaching orbit on the first flight. I think the higher risk item is when Starship makes their first experimental re-entry. That would be higher risk. Also, if they're going to make a soft splashdown attempt with the booster and maybe even with the Starship, those two things are higher risk, I think, because those have not really been tried before under those regimes. We've seen Starship land, so if it can get through re-entry and get to the belly flop portion, then it's basically the same as SN15, which did it. So there's parts of the flight profile that they tested either with Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy or on the previous Starship test flights, and there's other parts of it that are going to be brand new but are maybe the lower risk parts of the flight profile. So there's plenty of reason to think that they have reasonable confidence in the flight, but that's not to say that there won't be risk of things going wrong, and that regardless, the objective is to learn from it and be better prepared for the next attempt.
Yeah, no matter what happens, it'll be a good show, and they'll get some good data from whatever they do.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be mind-bending to see. I can kind of picture it in my head, but I think at the day that it happens, it's still going to be just amazing to see that gigantic structure we've seen sitting on the pad for so long take flight with a ship on top. And it's going to be amazing to see it take to the skies, and then hopefully main engine cut off, hopefully second stage ignition.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Jack asking, why do they cryoproof rather than just test using propellant? The difference is that if you load it with cryogenic nitrogen, if a leak occurs in any way, you're not risking an accidental ignition of anything, an explosion, because nitrogen is not ignitable. Whereas if you were loading liquid oxygen and liquid methane, the results of a leak are potentially an explosion, which obviously is much more damaging to the surrounding infrastructure, the vehicle itself. So if you're testing for leaks, you want to start with an inert material like nitrogen. And if there is a leak, you can obviously fix that and then do the cryoproof test again. If the test shows no leaks, then you know you're good to load the actual propellants. And speaking of which, what is the gas cloud below the booster made of? That is nitrogen venting, we think, right?
If it's not nitrogen venting, something has gone wrong.
Right, yeah. They're not loading any other commodities right now, so that is actual nitrogen just being vented.
Yep, and that's coming out of the engine bells, right? Because they sort of chill the engines.
Yes.
I don't know, actually.
Because I believe... Oh. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, there is... Yeah, so there's venting from the mount, but I don't know what exactly is connected to venting from engine chill.
Gotcha.
It's kind of mesmerizing watching a frost line grow so slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of have to scroll back in the stream a little bit to see, oh yeah, it is actually growing.
Yeah, there's a lot in the methane tank now. And still surprisingly little inside the LOX tank.
Yeah, but again, it's hard to tell how much of that is simply we can't see the very bottom of the LOX tank, so we just don't see it yet. About how far did they get on the on the previous test?
Ooh, I don't remember.
I mean, about this far. I think it was about this far. Then they drained the nitrogen, and that was really it.
All right. So if they keep growing, that means they're making progress since the last test.
Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe they're doing like a full nitrogen load. We talked about this earlier on, but I wonder if they're doing like. Last time was just to make sure there were no leaks, and now this time they're giving it a little bit more nitrogen just to further test it.
We got a message from our friend Jack Beyer in the back channel saying that the LOX tank was more visibly frosty on the last test, but the methane tank was maybe slightly less, so they are progressing in some ways and not in some others. Although, here's an interesting point. Hypothetically, if they aim to load mostly the LOX tank during the last test, and now they're more testing the methane tank on this test, that's a possibility. Again, we don't have the official info to say whether the test was even, like, we don't know if the last test actually went exactly as far as SpaceX wanted it to. Rather than they actually ran into issues and need to test again. It could just be sequential tests looking at the different tanks and things. So there's a couple different options to explain what we are seeing. Marco asking which booster will be deployed with Raptor version 2. We touched on that earlier. What booster is that? Are we first expecting that on again?
Whatever the first 33 Raptor booster is, probably 8 or 9 maybe. I don't know. That's just complete conjecture because 6 seems to got
not 4 or 5.
Yeah, not 4 or 5. That's for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's the hard answer we can give you. Everything else is speculation.
And definitely not 6 either.
Gotcha. Chungo asking, is Booster 4 still the one in the test flight along with Starship 20? I believe the answer is yes. The last time Elon talked about it is that the current plan is still Booster 4 and Ship 20. It's always subject to change, but that is the most recent plan we heard.
Which is just going to be all of the memes happening all at once.
Yep.
They got Raptor 4 and Raptor 20 and Raptor 69 and B4 and Ship 20. It's just going to be too many memeable numbers for me.
Yeah.
Liam asking, what was the outcome of the environmental assessment?
Ooh, that is still pending. If we hear on that, we will be one step closer for Orbital. And I believe the most recent that I heard, they're supposed to finish it at the end of December, right?
Yeah, I think they gave like a notice to be end of this year, hopefully by the end of this year.
Yeah. So whenever we see that, we will be that much closer to full stack and then full orbital test. That'll be so much fun. I really can't wait for that EPA report to come out.
Yep.
Got some more support coming in here with a super chat question asking, will the COPVs, those composite overwrapped pressure vessels, which are the small tanks on the side of the booster at the very bottom, will those COPVs be covered prior to flight? We've seen some hardware of kind of aero covers that can go over them, right?
Yeah, they have installed some aero covers. We can actually see one right in the center of Booster 4 from our point of view there. But there are still some that are uncovered that you can see. Now, I would assume they would want to cover those up prior to flight because if you're going through max Q and you're going supersonic, those would be pretty easy to get ripped off. So I would assume throughout the coming weeks that they're going to cover those up as they prepare it to get closer to flight.
Yeah, and we've seen crews working around those COPVs so frequently, like literally many times a day. There are people up there on little skyjacks working away, doing what? I have no idea, but there is always something to be done around those COPVs.
Gotcha. The next question here, how will crew get into Starship at the launch pad? Will they add a retractable walkway to the orbital launch tower, use a Starship cargo bay elevator, load up crew prior to actually loading Starship on the booster? I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll want Starship already integrated with the booster. I would imagine they'll just add a crew access arm, right?
No, I'm thinking we need to have everyone base jump from the top of the launch tower down to the Starship.
Just have like a little like a chute sticking out that you just fall into and slide inside. But
just a rope ladder.
But yeah, they will probably have to build a crew access arm because lifting people up in a basket or putting them in Starship and then lifting the whole vehicle up with a crane is just kind of asking for disaster. So you might as well just add a relatively small, relatively simple access arm onto the tower itself to get people inside.
Yeah, and it won't be that difficult to build out. I'm sure it'll be very similar to the QD claw that we already have up there. But they don't need that right now. That's kind of the cool thing with SpaceX, right? They're only worried about one thing, getting B4 and Ship 20 to orbit. And right now, they don't need to worry about a crew access arm. So whenever they do, we'll see their solution for that.
All right. Well, really quick here, I want to introduce, we're going to rotate some hosts here as Booster 4 cryogenic proof testing continues. I want to introduce, well not introduce, you all know who this guy is, but welcome back to the stream, Adrian Beale of NASASpaceflight. Adrian, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It looks like I missed the early action. And yeah, looking forward to more Frost hopefully this time.
Alright, Adrian joining our live coverage of Booster 4 cryo testing right now, and he's going to be taking the place of Mr. Ian Atkinson, who's going to head out for the afternoon. Ian, thank you for joining us for the beginning of Booster 4 testing today.
Yeah, it was great to be here. We saw some exciting testing, and hopefully we get to see even more today. It's been a fun time.
Alright, Ian, take care, and Adrian, welcome to the show.
Yep, have a good day,
Hello.
everybody.
Bye, Ian.
See ya.
Bye.
And we're going to just keep rolling with the questions as usual. Again, if you are just joining us, this is Booster 4 Cryogenic Proof Testing. We just brought Adrian onto the show. You're also hearing my voice, Thomas Burkhart, and as well as Nick is also on commentary with us. And you can see the frost has formed, especially most visibly on the methane tank, the top part of the booster. Also, potentially, we saw some frost rings at the very bottom of the liquid oxygen tank, the bottom part of the booster as well. And we're just keeping an eye on SpaceX as they conduct this ground testing for the booster. It is not a static fire test. They're loading the vehicle with liquid nitrogen to test for leaks and things, but with no overpressure notice, we know this is not static fire testing. But that's where we're keeping an eye on, and in the meantime, we are also taking questions as always, so if you have a question, please tag us with @NASASpaceflight, and we're going to answer as many as we can. So to dive right back in, here is our next question. Louise asking, do you think that they have cameras inside the tanks of Booster 4 during cryoproofing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They better.
I would bet on that.
I would love to see those angles.
I mean, we saw with, for example, Falcon 9 in-flight footage of the tanks with cameras in there. And if you put that into operational vehicles, I would expect that they for sure do this in testing vehicles. So yeah, I would bet that there are cameras in there.
We've seen those camera views for Falcon 9 basically, so the reason to think that they would have similar systems on the Starship booster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on into some more rampant speculation, although before we get into that, I do want to note that it looks like the frost may be decreasing again on that methane tank. It is possible that they are now on the later end of this test, if that is the loading levels that they meant to reach today, because the frost is no longer increasing. It looks like it's starting to decrease.
Well, I just introduced a ton of bad luck into the stream as soon as I joined. The frost's going down. Yeah, cursed it. Sorry.
But while we continue to keep an eye on what is going on, a question, do we think that we will see any Starlink Starship launches in 2022? Of course, the first orbital test flight, we would not expect any payloads to be on board. The question being, could they be at a point where they're actually able to attempt to deploy payloads in the future? What do you guys think?
I really hope we see some flights in 2022. I mean, most of 2021, the last half of 2021 hasn't seen much action flight wise. When did 15 land? Was that May?
That was about
Hold on.
6 months ago, I think.
Yeah. So I guess it's been 6 months since we've seen a flight out of Boca. So we need to get going, guys.
Yeah,
Let's go.
May 2021 was Starship SN15.
Wow.
Wow.
It simultaneously feels like forever ago, because it seems like not much flight testing has happened in Boca Chica in that time. But that was still this year. Like,
Yeah.
because the time frames are all relative here.
Yeah, I feel like there's this weird paradoxon in Starbase where you have time is going fast and slow at the same time, and it's weird.
Yep. Sometimes it runs forwards and backwards at the same time. I don't know what kind of quantum gate Elon opened up somewhere, but time is relative.
Also, for the protocol, I do not believe that we will see a Starlink mission in 2022, because I think you would need some sort of payload integration facility for that. You would need infrastructure that I doubt they will have ready before the end of 2022. So I would currently be more on the pessimistic side of expecting Starlink on Starship this year, but I'm open to be surprised.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because typically payloads are in clean rooms and all, decked out and special, but SpaceX kind of just does everything outside. So I wonder at some point if they're going to have to build some kind of big integration room, or just tell everyone that your payloads need to be durable enough to survive some humidity.
Yeah. So I'm loving the views of the pad right now. It looks stunning with all the fog, all the condensation going on there. I love how the vents during these cryo tests behave when these kind of tests are performed here.
It's just kind of wispy.
The next question here from Ticonderoga asks, do we think a Starship could lift off from Texas and land at the Cape in Florida in the future?
That sounds like a good idea, and I'd be surprised if SpaceX didn't pursue that.
I think I might come on the other side of that argument. I mean, yes, especially if they're going to pursue sort of Earth-to-Earth transportation at some point, that would be feasible. But as far as getting Starships to Florida, it is unlikely that vehicles that... okay, hold on. Let me take this back. If a Starship goes to orbit from Texas, and then the landing site is chosen to be Cape Canaveral, that's one thing. If we're talking about a suborbital hop from Texas to Florida, that I'm not sure why they would do that.
Yeah,
they're gonna bring on their own manufacturing capability in Florida to support Florida's Starship operations, almost certainly.
Yeah, I think there is a case where I think we even hinted or discussed a similar case last stream. So I think what could be the case is when you orbital launch from one facility and that there will be increased cadence at the other facility later down the road. You can just start from the one side and then land on the other to basically transfer a vehicle slowly from one to the other, but I doubt there will be suborbital hops to transfer vehicles.
I just think it would be obviously this wouldn't be the first few Starships. They'd want to be pretty well flight proven, but I think it would be a good opportunity for them to get both a static fire out of the way and a full integration test, and kind of just yeet it all up there. If they're making 2 or 3 Starships a week, and they got to get them all over to the Cape, it sounds like a pretty quick and easy way. Just light all the Raptors, see if it works, send it on over, and get it over there. It sounds easy, but I'm sure there's a million small details.
Also, I want to add for the previous question about Starlink that thanks to Jack, we see that in the FAA document there is a payload processing facility mentioned. So they will construct some sort of payload processing facility in Boca Chica.
Gotcha. We got some more support coming in here, so I want to thank people. Clever with the new Red Team membership, thank you so much for joining on. Senti with some super chat support, appreciate it. We also have a question from James. Could they load liquid oxygen during cryo tests? Generally speaking, no, because liquid oxygen is an ignition risk. Pure oxygen is no bueno for fires. And so that's why they stick with liquid nitrogen for these proof tests. And then once they're confident that there's no leaks and things like that, that's when we see things like liquid oxygen and liquid methane get loaded for propellant load testing. A question from Kyle. Why did they choose to use methane on Starship instead of what Falcon 9 used? Because Falcon 9 used kerosene and liquid oxygen instead of methane and liquid oxygen. But the main driver for changing that was because it is a lot harder to produce kerosene using resources that are present on Mars. Whereas there's actually the right molecular elements present in Martian soil and the Martian atmosphere that you can produce methane fuel on Mars and refuel your vehicles there. So that is the main driver behind the fuels that will be used on the Starship system. Also, liquid methane offers usually better specific impulse or better fuel efficiency than kerosene and liquid oxygen does. That's another benefit. But the main driver
cleaning
was...
them is a lot easier. There's not as much.
Yes, it is a cleaner burn as
non-combustive
well,
hydrocarbon. Yeah.
which will improve reusability of the Raptor engines.
I always wonder about the structure of these tests. Like, why would you start to fill the bottom and then move to the top right away? Like, I want to know what's going on there. If I really want to know why they test in this specific order. I mean, I get it. They first want to test fuel the bottom so the top doesn't collapse. But why move to the top at all right away and fill it more than the bottom? Like, I want to understand this process. It bugs me that I don't.
The spreadsheet is missing information.
Yeah, if somebody of SpaceX want to DM me on Twitter, go away. Go right away. Like, would be cool. Thanks.
Another question from someone also named Adrian, saying, does the ship perform engine chill with the booster for an orbital launch, or how does that work? Generally speaking, if we're going to base it on how the Falcon 9s fly, the upper stage does its own engine chill kind of into flight already prior to when that stage is expected to ignite its engines. So wouldn't happen at the same time as booster engine chill. The Starship engines would likely only chill once they are approaching MECO and stage separation. Although it also depends on how long that engine chill takes to occur. So,
can I go against that?
Go ahead, Adrian.
Here we go. I think it takes about 12 minutes because we know when they start engine chills during these tests, which is about 12 to 13 minutes, at least so far. So I think there is maybe the case that they want to pre-chill the engines about 12 to 13 minutes before ignition, which would mean, since the first stage burns shorter than 12 minutes, they would start the ground. They would start the chill of the upper stage engine at the ground.
Now, slight counterpoint, although I see your point. When the stage separation occurs, you're also in space, so your engine components are already colder. So would engine chill for an ignition in space take less time?
Well, how does it work with the Falcon 9? Don't they do engine chill kind of during the stage 1 burn?
Right, exactly. Like Merlin vacuum engine chill occurs in flight, whereas stage 1 engine chill occurs obviously before ignition and like a couple minutes before the stage 1 starts. So that's the other thing. So there's a point. Stage 1 engine chill occurs, I think, 7 minutes before liftoff for Falcon 9, and the stage 1 burn does not last 7 minutes. But Merlin vacuum engine chill does not take 7 minutes because it doesn't happen until the stage is already in flight for a while. So there is my counterpoint to your counterpoint, Adrian. Of course, we are still speculating, but
yeah, it's an interesting point. Like, I'm lacking ground testing data from Falcon 9 here to argument against that. So I guess the answer, as always with Starship, is we will see.
Ain't that the case?
Some more support here from Smooth Juice. Thank you so much, saying, thanks for doing this channel on NASASpaceflight. You help so many in ways you don't think about. Merry Christmas. Appreciate the kind words there and the support as well. Also Remy with some financial support there. We appreciate you as well. Kyle with a question, what is the fate of Ship 21 once it is finished, joining Booster 5, Ship 16, and Ship 15? Any predictions?
I sure hope not.
It is painful to see some of these prototypes meet with the fates that they do.
Yeah. I would imagine it's probably going to get skipped, in all honesty, especially after we've been told that we're going to have a 9-engine Starship soon. They're going to have to redo the bottom and stretch the tanks, and after they do 20, I'm sure they'll be ready for whatever one that's going to be, so I really hope not, though. Like, come on. 21 hasn't even had a chance yet, folks.
Let's see here. Varan says, "Hello guys, thanks for all the coverage. What are your thoughts on the Aerospike engine? And do you think anyone will be using them soon?" Probably not.
I will join that statement.
Yeah. The old nozzle engine design seems to be working pretty well. Appreciate the support there, Varan. A question from Tony. What happens to Starbase when Starship is fully operational? Do they move to Kennedy or do they stay where they were? I think they will add Kennedy, not replace Starbase with Kennedy. Do you guys agree?
Yes, I think the goal, what they have in terms of how many flights they want to do and how many operations they want to do with Starship, it requires more than one. Maybe even in the end more than 2 or 3 launching areas. So I see it more than like an add to the existing infrastructure and not like a replacement.
Just for my own job security, I really hope that they keep stuff going on in Starbase.
Well, we can move you to Florida, Nick. That's not a problem.
But like, where else do you have this kind of access where you can just drive up on a public highway feet away from a booster? Nowhere else.
Very true. If you are just joining us, this is still Booster 4 cryogenic proof testing, and as you can see, the frost on that upper methane tank is continuing to decrease a little bit, so it looks like they may be on the second half of testing where they are draining the liquid nitrogen from the tanks. Of course, we have seen that happen, and then the frost starts to form again, so we'll have to wait and see exactly, but that is what we're seeing right now. Let's see. Next question. Turtle asking, what with the plans for 6 Raptor vacuums on Starship, seems to me like they wouldn't fit with the current nozzle size. Am I wrong, or will they have to make the nozzles a bit smaller? I believe we have done some math based on some images that we have, and the current Raptor vacuum size can absolutely fit 3 more vacuum Raptors on Starship with not a whole lot of trouble. The nozzles do not have to be smaller.
Yes.
Although the main point of discussion is it may slightly limit the gimbal range of the sea level Raptors in the middle. That might be a slight change. Not that they can't gimbal, just that they might have slightly less room. But the nozzles themselves should have no problem fitting.
Yeah, I mean, they probably have some experience about what gimbal range they need with the ship during the flop after the initial testing. So maybe even that encouraged them to add more engine at this point, that they are confident that they can do it with less gimbal.
Let's see here. Some more support that has come through. James saying, love the channel and coverage, so thank you. Thank you, James. Sam with some super chat support as well, saying, are they testing the fittings for the gas to spin up the engines prior to ignition? I'm not sure we know that information.
I have no idea either. I think we saw them in some prior tests that there is actually there is some nitrogen going through the engine sometimes during these tests, but I don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure it was never confirmed for what that is used. Yeah. So, yeah.
Some more super chats that have come through. Greg asking, has Chris left for Guyana? Go James Webb Telescope. I'm not sure I should give an exact update on Chris's travel plans, but as you know, Chris is traveling to French Guiana to support our live coverage of the James Webb launch. I just called it the James Webb Launch Telescope. The James Webb Space Telescope launch. And stand by for what exactly that coverage will be. Again, we want to get Chris there in French Guiana so we can do technical checks and things before we say exactly what we'll be able to do. But regardless, he will be contributing to our coverage from there, and stay tuned.
I mean, all you have to do is open the fairing before launch, so you have a launch telescope, right? So it can film the launch.
Adrian? No. None of that.
Okay. No? Okay.
No.
We're gonna have a picture-perfect launch. It's gonna be fine. James Webb's gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be an issue. Everything's fine.
Okay, everything is fine.
Everything
My
is
Christmas
fine.
Eve is going to be spent worriedly checking Twitter and watching live streams. It's going to be a terrible Christmas Eve. I already know it. just because I'm going to be stressed about it. It's going to be a beautiful launch, but I'm going to be stressed.
It's good.
Absolutely.
Beautiful, picture perfect launch.
And then another bit of support here. Hey, I think we know this person. Austin DeSisto with a Super Chat support saying, howdy, just my traditional support for the NSF crew. Keep it up. Austin, a friend of the channel, how are you doing? Appreciate the support there.
Pretty much.
The next question here is from Jefferson saying, at this point, what is missing for this bird to fly? Any external permission or hardware readiness? What other items are we waiting for orbital flight readiness, guys?
Okay,
Hold on.
what?
Let me get the list out. I think I have the whole list.
You have a list?
In a folder. It's like a folder. There's a whole long list of things that need to happen.
Okay, already teasing it. It's a few items. There's still a few things to do before this bird can launch. While I generate some time for Nick to search this list.
Yeah.
How you?
I'll give you the summary. How about that? I know I have a folder full of all of the little details that still need to get done, but B4 still needs to do a whole test campaign. I mean, this is part of what we're doing right now, watching these cryo proofs, but this is the second cryo proof that they've been doing on B4, so we have a long road of proof testing before we get to static fire, and then static fires with multiple different engine configurations, and probably some more proof testing in there, and then they got to get the Starship up on it, and oh, by the way, we're still waiting for government approval, so it could be a while, but hopefully not. Ooh, is that venting?
Yes, that's venting.
Is that D-tank venting?
I mean, at least the last time that was the vent we saw. Like, it's 4 at the top in each direction, and it's I think like probably future settling thrusters at the middle because they are directed at the bottom.
Yep. Those are going to be used to settle the propellant back to the bottom of the booster before they relight the engines. That'll be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, so maybe
pretty powerful venting.
I mean, oh, wait a second. Maybe they filled up the top tank more because they wanted to test these, and they are feed from the top tank.
Not sure.
Just a random thought.
You're just joining us. This is Booster 4 cryogenic proof testing, and we're seeing a prolonged vent now from Booster 4. Possible indicator of approaching the end of testing. That frost on the top methane tank of the booster has been decreasing recently, so it did look like they were draining liquid nitrogen from the tanks.
I want to point out that... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Thomas.
I was just saying, yeah, this vent is just another sign that they may be wrapping up.
Or finish just one stage of this test and move into a full cryo after this, because still so far they haven't done a fully fueled booster cryo test.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe their first objective was like testing these thrusters, for example, and now they're moving into another test. So we don't know until the road sings, I guess.
The road sings?
I was, yeah.
Till the road reopens, I think is the word. But
yeah, I was mixing something.
My heart will be
anyway.
singing. My heart will be singing.
But yeah, that is where we're at with testing for now, and we're continuing to take your questions. Also, I think we're going to swap out some more voices here. I think I'm actually going to step away because we've got our good friend Jack Beyer joining the stream. Jack, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. Just sitting here waiting for my MacBook Pro to be delivered for the second time. But I won't get started on that. I'm excited to see some Booster 4 testing. Look at this venting. It looks really cool.
It does look very cool. It's a nice, powerful vent.
So yeah,
I love it. Yeah, the bottom vent looks cool.
The what coming from the engine section?
Like the bottom of the the bottom of the middle part. That was weirdly worded, but yeah, the vent going down from the middle.
Yeah, that looks really neat. All right, so with that, I think we can let Thomas bail here.
Yeah, it's just rotating out. Have a good time with the rest of booster forward cryo testing, and I'll talk to you all later. Thomas Burkhardt signing off for now. I'll leave you in the very capable hands of Jack, Adrian, and Nick.
Joke's on you, my hands aren't capable.
Mine are not either.
All right, have a good one, guys.
Very
three of us
confident,
will-
inspiring.
Yeah, between the three of us, we'll muddle our way through the rest of this test.
Couple memberships and stuff have come in. Looks like Harry. Thank you for becoming a Pad Rat member. We appreciate you and all of our members. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoy the perks you get there. Throw an Elon Super Heavy in chat for me. Martin Clayton, thank you so much for the support. They say, could Crew Dragon somehow be used in the Starship cargo hold? Thanks for all the great coverage. That's wacky. I'm going to say no. Does anyone else want to chime in?
That would be super wacky, but honestly, I think that's something that Elon would do. Just to be like, yeah, you know what? Why not? You know, why not? Just toss a Crew Dragon, or you know, even like a resupply. You know, just stick like one of the resupply dragons in there.
It
probably not.
sounds like it sounds like one of these cursed Kerbal designs that sometimes are going on the NASASpaceflight Discord. Yeah, right there. That's one of them.
I might be dating myself here, but do you guys remember Wacky Races? With all the crazy test tanks and vehicles that they're building out there in Boca Chica, I'm getting a distinct Wacky Races but in space vibe. So maybe if they went full send on that, they could do a cargo dragon in the cargo hold or something, or a Crew Dragon in the cargo hold, who knows. But there definitely is no shortage of odd things being built and utilized out there in Starbase. Is it just me, or is this vent sort of losing velocity, like sort of petering out a little bit?
I completely agree with you.
Interesting.
So that would
but it's not anymore.
That would indicate it's a full depress, at least, like from previous experience we had. When they do a full depress, we always see these long going, fading out vents that are first powerful and then become less and less and less powerful.
Yep, that makes sense. Very interesting that we did not see the LOX tank take on a lot of frost on this test. They must have just pressurized it just enough that it could support the weight of the upper tank.
Yeah.
We saw a lot more frost on the LOX tank on the previous cryoproof.
Yeah, it's so far the cryoproofs for this booster are weird. I feel like it's always only a bit. It's never really this fully or almost fully top of vehicle that is just getting tested for pressure. So far, it's only put in the bare minimum, do some hold there, and then detank.
Yeah, go figure. Although this is the first time that they are doing this sort of testing on the orbital launch mount with a booster, so it would make sense that they're sort of figuring out testing flow as well, and maybe running into issues here and there, and we'll just have to wait and see if they conduct another cryoproof after this, or what happens next.
Maybe they're also confident at the... I mean, I'm just guessing here, but maybe they're also confident in the general tank structure at this point, like behaving at certain pressure and just checking for leak at cryos and stuff. I don't know. Like, I am just throwing ideas into the commentary.
That's fine. That's always good to do. You know, we sit here for a couple hours and tank watch, and you start to speculate a little bit. It does look like that LOX tank, though, is not necessarily frosting up, but condensating. You guys see that? Like coloration?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
We're getting like the empty can of canned air sort of phenomenon here, where the vapor has all been exhausted out of a container, and thus it has gotten colder because, I don't know, is that physics or chemistry? I don't know.
Both. It's science. Science.
There you go. Thank you. It's science. Much better. Hamster Space Nerd, thank you for the support. Samsung, thank you for the support. I'm not going to sing that, but that's pretty funny. Psycho, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Again, Red Team members get various perks like chat emoji and preview video clips and photos from Nick and Mary. And I am going to throw, speaking of chat emoji, another Elon Super Heavy into chat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Elons. Bam.
Elon Super Heavy chat. Ooh.
Yeah,
These emotes?
it's a central common core Elon with 2 side booster Elons on either side. It is a super heavy lift Elon. Very rare. Very majestic, very rare.
Since it has 5 cores, isn't it more like a Soyuz Elon?
Even better. And we'll get an Elon cross when the outer Elons separate. What is going on right now?
Oh god. Thomas is gone for 5 minutes.
Just right off the rails. There's the rails. We see them. We are off them. Okay. George, thank you for the support. They say they are testing valves and plumbing. Yeah, that makes sense. They're not just testing the ability of the booster to withstand cryo pressures and temps. They are also testing the entire system. It would stand to reason.
Yeah, they are using science to test the pipes.
There we go. And those two vents. The 2 vents are almost like completely petered out at this point. I gotta say, the booster looks gorgeous with this frost gradient, condensation gradient, whatever you want to call it. Do we think that they are filling that LOX tank, or do you think that they are emptying the LOX tank? That's my question right now.
I'm still waiting for, like, usually when we see this, the filling up of these tanks, there is like a very clear line where the current like fill point is, and I don't see that there. So as long as I don't see that, I am not sure.
No, that's a really good point, because we see when they depress a ship a very similar pattern of condensation that's more of a gradient than a sharp line. And if you guys remember just a little while ago, that CH4 tank up top on the booster, that had a very defined line, right? Of where the liquid was and where the frost is, and I mean, it's a pretty reasonable contrast there. So, detanking? I would believe detanking. I would also believe tanking, though, although it does look different than I would expect.
Top vent, I bet. Like, we see from time to time, we see one of these top vents going on.
Oh yeah, up there by the QD.
Yeah, basically on the same height. So it looks like we have like these four is German, 4 direction thrusters, or like vents at the top, and then the like settling vents, I guess, in the middle. So that's the current vents we can see on the booster.
I want to make jokes about German number names, but I'm going to just move on and only say that. Samsung, thank you for the other support. Sorry I didn't sing. I'm glad you are being sarcastic about wanting a refund. And Anthony Plack, thank you for the support. They say, these are not vents. These are the thrusters Elon spoke about. These seem like vents to me, because they're going down.
So they are vents, but they're also ullage thrusters. And so this is something that Tim and Elon basically invented as they were doing that tour a couple months ago. They just have these little hoods. The valve still opens kind of perpendicular to the side of the tank wall, shoots out, but they have like these little hoods that go on top of the vent holes that redirect that downwards.
Was that what they were talking about in the Tim interview, or was that the nixing of the hot gas thrusters, which are used for vehicle orientation and reorienting during, re-entry and whatnot? I'm not sure.
I believe they were nixing a hot. From my recollection, they were nixing a hot gas thruster to do ullage maneuvers. However, please correct me in the chat, because I just take the pictures around here. I'm still not sure why Chris B is letting me talk right now.
I don't think it was just ullage. I think it was the whole reaction control system. They're just going to crack the vents in the tank and use high pressure venting of hot ullage gas as reaction control thrusters.
Cool.
That is saying Nick is right. Just as a side note.
And we're hearing in the back
take
channel
that.
that it's both. So, yay, everybody's correct.
Both? What? Oh my
Yes.
goodness, we can both be
Also-
right. I love this.
Also, when you said they invented the vents, I giggled. Sorry.
Oh man, there's gonna be a lot of nonsense on the back half of this stream for sure.
Bryce, thank you for the support. And TN Sportsman, I wonder if they're from Tennessee. Thank you for the support. Saying, what orientation would the chopsticks be in during launch? Would they be able to clear the ship and move to the side like they are now after stacking? That's a very good question. We haven't really seen the chopsticks sort of translate up and down the tower yet, so I'm not quite clear on their range of motion. But certainly it would make sense if after they stack the ship, they hopefully would be able to move to the side and try and get out of the way as much as possible of the exhaust plume from 33 Raptors.
Oh wow! Just imagine during a launch when the launch happened, you would see in the operational phase of the chopsticks how they move then to their catching position and getting ready to catch the booster. So that will be it will be very worth to have a camera on the pad while the whole thing is launching, because the chopsticks would move as well.
Yeah, we always talk about after a launch, whenever we're doing our launch streams, that the thing we want to see is an empty launch pad. And now, with Stage 0 here in Starbase, we will get some additional action on the launch pad after a launch. We'll see those chopstick arms sort of reorient and whatnot. I'm also wondering if instead of just being off to the side, maybe they just open up to their maximum width and sort of just be out of the way in that way. Either way, I'm sure smart people at SpaceX have thought about this, and there will be a solution. It's just a matter of we have to wait and see what it is.
I mean, they can't be at their catching height, I guess, because if you look, I mean, they will catch. We don't even know where exactly they will catch it, right? Because I think they would catch it to the side and not over the pad, because if you don't catch it, then there's a pad next.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I have
You're
heard they
probably
will be catching on the
interested.
south side of the tower, but I don't know if that is actually true or
I
not.
have also heard that, but yeah, who knows?
I mean, if you think
The
about it,
funny thing is,
if something goes wrong and they're catching on the south side of the tower, that is the maximum distance away from the orbital tank farm and the mount itself that you can really get. So if something goes wrong and things fall and are fiery and whatnot, hopefully you're minimizing the amount of infrastructure you can potentially take out in that instance.
That would be the position we are looking at right now.
Yep.
Like,
It would be
but
closer to the camera.
but the thing, can I argue against that just for fun?
Yep.
Wouldn't the QD be in the way then? Because then you have the QD is also to the south, right?
That's fair.
So
I know the QD can move a little bit, but yeah, that's a fair question. I'm not sure how much it can move.
Yeah, it does really depend on how far the QD arm can swing. And to be honest, like the chopsticks are still mounted to the east side of the tower. Like there's a pin there, so they can only rotate away from the orbital launch mount by like maybe 90 degrees one way and 90 degrees the other. There isn't all that much room to be able to catch it like on the opposite side of the tower, but they'd probably catch it on the south-ish side. I don't know if that made any sense. Probably didn't. That felt intelligent in the moment. I'll probably delete it later.
You can't. It's on the stream.
Oh man, it's on the stream? Man, I thought this was recorded. Oh dear.
By the way, since I see it in chat, I just rewinded 2 minutes, and if you rewind, like do the quick A/B check, you can see the frost is actually decreasing at this point again. So if you go back 2 minutes and go back to live, you can see
Is that
the frost is
on
going
the
down.
locks or methane?
Both actually.
Ooh.
Both are a bit more 2 minutes ago than they were right now.
So very possible that we are getting into the end of testing for today, although there's a bunch of time left in the window, right? The window today goes until 6 local, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
6 local. Yes, sir. Hopefully they are done early though.
So we'll just have to keep our eyes on the roadblock and on the situation here and see what happens next. Some good old-fashioned tank watching. Let's see, Mike Smith is asking, going on both Florida and Texas, do you think we will see dual flights same day, same hour later on? I think that's entirely
how
possible.
much later on?
Yeah, I mean, on an infinite timescale, anything is possible. But in the near future, it wouldn't surprise me, given that Starship itself requires orbital refueling, and what better way to do an orbital refueling than launch 2 ships and have them meet in orbit at a near simultaneous time. But I am not a rocket scientist, so maybe there's somebody at SpaceX that would hear that and scoff. And so take what I say with a grain of salt, but it wouldn't shock me if in the future we get 2 vehicles launching from 2 separate launch sites very rapidly in succession in order to meet up and accomplish that orbital refilling.
I mean, you would at least have a problem with, like, if you launched with the same inclination, you still have the problem that you now have basically an offset orbit where they just they're not in the same position when they launch from 2 different sites.
Orbital mechanics or something.
Yeah. Based on my limited Kerbal experience.
Oh man, thank goodness for Kerbal.
Oh yeah.
Black Eagle Gaming is asking, won't they have to rebalance Starship if they stretch the tanks, and will they shorten the fairing? I don't think they'll shorten the fairing. I think if anything they'll move some maybe move the header tanks around or resize the header tanks or do some other sort of balancing in order to get that center of mass where they want it. But again, I'm not a rocket scientist, so I'm probably not qualified to say. However, I gotta say I'm excited for stretched Starship. I know you guys were talking about that a little bit earlier on the stream. A stretched Starship is going to look even more wild than it already does, which is significantly wild, so pretty exciting there.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be like the limousine of Starships. Like, it's going to be the most premium version of Starship out there, the stretched Starship. They'll probably spray paint it black, get some disco lights inside. It'll be fun.
Is that... I want to have a second opinion here, because there is a certain line where basically the decreasing stops on the LOX tank.
On
You
the
see?
LOX tank? Yeah, right above the chopsticks.
Yeah, it basically goes down and thrusts down, but it only thrusts down until that point. So, I think it might be interesting to watch it the next few minutes, but like there could be something in there based on this. Like if it only decreases up until a certain line, that might be the area where it's currently filled at.
Yeah,
but we will see in like in a few minutes.
It does look like it's decreasing a little bit, but this looks consistent with what we've seen in terms of nitrogen in one of these either Starship or booster tanks at a certain level. Yeah. This looks more like frost and less like condensation from a vessel that has been depressurized or detanked.
It's also weird to just stop at a certain level, like Y-former level.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it looks like it's still going down. Like as we are talking, I can see it sort of recede a little bit more. So let's wait and see.
Yeah.
Daily Kryptos is asking, what's up with Phobos and Deimos? If you guys don't know, those are the oil rigs that SpaceX bought for a song for like no money, and is planning to convert them into floating spaceports. And basically, I think, again, back to that Tim interview, Tim asked about it, and Elon was pretty unflappable and just said, yeah, they're not priority right now. So I don't know if work has necessarily been fully paused on them, but it certainly seems like they are not currently the priority. I think only Phobos was getting actively worked on, and I think it's basically been in a steady state for a while now. There's a really good thread on NASASpaceflight.com on the forums that you can go check out that is dedicated to following these things, and I'm trying to vamp while I find the link. And here it is. I'll throw that link in chat. It's going to be the middle of the thread because that's where I'm at in my current reading of it. But there you go. Go check out that thread for Phobos and Deimos informations. And yeah, look at that frost line now.
Yeah,
it's definitely continuing to recede.
I retract my statement. At this point.
Do you retract it like a crew access arm or like a QD arm? How? In what way do you retract it?
Let's see. Like the center core doing the Falcon Heavy demo mission, like just hiding in the ocean.
All right.
Oh, wow. Just weird.
Sorry.
A little bit of flair there. All right, cool. Let's see. Freddy Energizer is saying, question, any idea when we can see a full stack event again? Hopefully soon, but they're going to have a lot of testing to do with the booster first, and I don't know if you guys have talked about it on this stream or not, but Ship 20 has had its crane attach points removed. We don't know why. I suspect they just want to test a full heat shield with a static fire, and they'll just throw those crane attach points back on, but a lot of speculation regarding what exactly is going on there and what the purpose of removing those attach points are. But as it stands right now, today, I don't think there's a way to even lift Ship 20 off of Pad B. So we'll just have to wait and see.
This is true. Well, I have some super secret news, and we just need to keep this inside of this live stream. I think it's going to be in 2 weeks. We'll have a full stack in 2 weeks, which, is Elon's way of saying forever and a day. So between then, we'll have a full stack.
Yeah, I mean, 2 weeks is the new soon, right?
I know everyone is referencing what Elon has said in the past, but I can't hear 2 weeks and not think of Total Recall. If you haven't seen Total Recall, hey, it's a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger about Mars. So,
Ooh.
I mean, nominally about Mars. There's other things going on too, but it's set on Mars. Come on, people, go watch Total Recall. It's amazing. And
I have not seen it yet.
Really? Okay. Well, there's a solid 2 weeks reference in there that I'm not going to spoil, so you're just gonna have to go and watch it. 2 weeks. There, I'll do that. That's all you get.
Okay. I know I've seen it, but I don't remember the 2 weeks reference, so I'll have to go back and watch that.
Now I'm like questioning myself. Is that actually Total Recall? I think it is. I'm almost positive it is.
I'm sure it is. It's been like a decade since I've watched Total Recall, so.
Let's see. The Creeper Club is asking, does the vapor at the underside of the orbital launch tower come out of the Raptors? We've seen them flow nitrogen through the Raptor engines on previous tests. They all seem to have like a little port where they, like right near the nozzle, where they are capable of doing that. And I think that's in part because you don't want, like back in the Starship test flight days of yore, just 6 months ago, if you guys remember the tri-vent, that was 3 individual vents that were related to engine chill down. Well, hey, booster has 29 engines, and soon to be 33. You don't necessarily want a Swiss cheese of vents on the side of the booster, so it makes sense to sort of relocate those ports onto the Raptor itself, which I think is what we are seeing the result of now. Is that fair to say? You think?
Yes,
Yeah.
I think I completely agree. Looking at the frost lines, I will just do the quick. So somebody asked in the chat a beat check. What I basically do is I rewind 1 or 2 minutes and then go live again and compare the frost lines, because that's the easiest way to spot it. And it looks like the frost is still going down on mostly the lower tank, the LOX tank, but also a bit on the upper tank as well.
Wolfram, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. Capcom level of support for our channel enables Discord access for you. So pop into the Discord when that propagates for you, and I will reply with my requisite Forrest Gump waving gif. Seriously, thank you for the support.
It is a very cool Discord. Shoutouts to the NSF Discord as always. It's such a cool place to hang out, to discuss space and other things. And yeah, it's incredibly fun.
Yeah, like when I jumped on the stream, I mentioned my MacBook Pro. If you want to follow along in my MacBook Pro ordeal, you can do that in the Discord because I'm telling people developments as it goes. It's been
Also,
fun.
you can always spot where Chris B is currently derailing a channel to totally talk about something different.
Yep, sure enough. Or you can go on over into the gaming section and show us your cursed rockets that you've made in Kerbal Space Program. And
Oh
maybe,
God, please don't.
maybe, just maybe, you might get on the leaderboard for most cursed rocket that we have.
Ah, the Harry Stranger leaderboard.
Let's see. Yeah, I think he's on there. I'm pretty sure he's on there.
He has to be.
Let's see. Bork, thank you for the Red Team membership. We appreciate it. James Juries is asking, how many rings do you think Starship will grow by? 1 ring per tank, question mark? I don't think we can even guess there. I don't think 1 ring per tank would work either for in terms of volumes, because you need a different volume of LOX to a different volume of methane. So that's a good question.
Yeah, Starship just needs to make sure to keep eating their vegetables and their meats and getting a balanced diet and good exercise. That's how Starships grow really tall.
It's going to be eating its Wheaties for a little while now, and then it'll bulk up and get bigger. Bryce, I'm not sure I understand this question or statement. I guess it's more of a statement. Thank you for the support, Bryce. They say if fill capacity is increased compared to the test stands, Frost might be lagging behind actual volume. So I think they're saying if they can fill the booster very rapidly, that Frost might be lagging behind. But now that this is a 13-minute-old super chat here, so thank you for the support there. I think with the benefit of hindsight, we can now say that no, it's actually decreasing. But that does make sense, what you're saying.
Yeah.
Tennessee Sportsman, I'm just going to guess that TN means Tennessee, because Tennessee Sportsman sounds cool. It's got a nice ring to it. Is asking, would it not make sense to slap a tower with chopsticks on one of the oil rigs until the catching maneuver is perfected and then do a return to launch site? Like use the oil rigs as a test platform for catching? I suppose that would make sense, but at the same time, it's all about opportunity cost, right? Like how much time and effort is that going to take for something that might just be temporary or for a design that they might not want on the oil rigs for whatever reason. So,
and what did Mr. Beck say about sea assets?
He said they're great and he loves them and we're not going to disparage them because then Gavin would cry. We love you, Gavin.
Yes. Yes.
And we love marine assets.
I mean, would you even... Like, the benefit, of course, would be that you wouldn't destroy your launch infrastructure at ground, right? If you launch at sea for the testing. But on the other hand, then you would destroy your launch infrastructure in the sea, and you would still have to rebuild it for the next test if it goes wrong. So in the end, it only depends where you want to destroy launch infrastructure if it goes wrong. And I'm not sure if sea is easier to rebuild than ground.
No, I think that's a perfect example, a perfect line of thought there, because what's easier to rebuild, a tower on land or an entire oil rig out at sea? I think those oil rigs are, I mean, I suspect they will ultimately end up being used. I don't think they're just scrapped, but that also doesn't mean they necessarily want to just roast them completely, because oil rigs are expensive, and they lucked out and got these cheap, since they were otherwise just going to be scrapped. I mean, I think they basically got them for scrap price, which is insane.
Yeah.
Jonathan Tanner is saying, I'm a bit behind, but Adrian mentioned wondering why they fill the upper tank at this stage. I suspect it's to stop the common dome from buckling, as it would if they just pressed the lower tank. I suppose that makes sense. I don't know if I agree with it, but it makes sense, logically.
Yeah, completely logical and valid point I did not think about. Thanks for that. I will steal that theory.
Yoink!
Yoink! That's my theory. No, thank you, thank you. It's a completely valid point. I kind of forgot, like in my imagination, that common bulkhead was just stable and would not break at any point.
Yeah, that was kind of my initial gut reaction, but it does make sense that, under the right circumstances, or I guess the wrong circumstances, you could get an inversion of that dome, which would be a very bad thing.
But it would be a lot of fun to watch, though, Jack.
That's true. Let's see. Judd Nichols this looks like some speculation on their part. They're saying won't catch in Boca until Florida launch site ready. I don't think that's the case. I think as soon as they're able to attempt to catch with the tower and a booster or a ship, they will.
Yeah, Frost is still receding. No change in pace here, and it's just going down more and more.
And I guess that means that it's probably not going to pop today, which is probably a good thing.
Ugh,
Yeah,
I had some water go down the wrong tube. Sorry, I'm like coughing and recovering over here while I'm muted.
Ooh, I hate it when
good.
that happens.
Yeah, since it's mentioned in chat as well, it seems like James Webb Space Telescope was just moved by 1 day to December 25.
What? No kidding, it's going to be a Christmas launch now?
Yeah, Arianespace tweeted it, and
oh no.
Yeah, it's now December 25 for James Webb Space Telescope.
Oh no, this isn't April Fool's Day, is it?
Nope.
Now targeting Christmas morning due to weather. Well, Chris G, hopefully you can hear us. You always wanted to see an Ariane launch, and you always wanted to see James Webb launch, and now you're getting it as a Christmas present.
Hey, that's true.
Yeah, but to be totally fair here, this is one of these things where I'm glad they are delaying if the weather is not great. Like,
Yep.
Take your time.
100%. And here we can see some tweets that are showing the different possible launch windows from various points around the world. Like, what time is it in your place? What time is it going to go?
Cool, it's right after noon for me now. That's cool.
You're like, nice, easy, done.
Yeah, I take it.
Frost continuing to decline. Let's see, what else we got? Everyday Space Nerd is asking, does the tank farm have methane and oxygen in it yet? If not, then could they pipe it over from the suborbital tank farm? Oh my gosh. I've heard different things about if there's a connection between the suborbital and orbital tank farm and pad. I don't think there is, but I could be completely wrong on that. What I do know is that there's no methane in the tank farm yet. I don't think we've seen any methane trucks delivered. We have seen oxygen and we have seen nitrogen. No methane.
Yep. Stole the words right out of my mouth, Jack.
And also, just to point that out again, since I know we said it before, but just to point that out again, today's test will only be a cryogenic pressure test. There's no methane involved today, there's no overpressure notice out, and there won't be a static fire today. You can quote me on that.
With any luck. Let's just caveat that. With any luck.
I guess Elon has 2 hours and 20 minutes to prove Adrian wrong.
And oh no. And we have more top vents. There was
Always
another
good.
one.
Always nice to see an active vehicle. Paragon 643, thanks for becoming a Capcom member. Another new Capcom member. We appreciate all of the support from our members. Paragon, you get Discord access. So pop into Discord, and you know what I'm going to say next? I'll greet you with my requisite Forrest Gump waving gif. And Emmy Ski, also another new Capcom member. Again, pop into Discord, say hey, find a channel that suits what you like specifically, because we've got a whole bunch of different channels, from tech chat to gaming to various different launch providers to all kinds of stuff. So pop into Discord and say hey and dig in. And Sneezy Ferret, Sneezy Ferret, says, hey, you started without me. Can the chopsticks go higher than the QD arm? It looks like the QD arm is in the way.
So the QD arm is actually to the side. It's kind of actually it's a good angle to see it, because you can see the QD arm is not attached like in front of the booster. It's more attached to the side of the booster. So what is expected is they can actually move past that. I mean, they kind of have to move past the QD arm, because if they would be below the QD arm, their catching would probably not go well.
Also, stacking the ship on top of the booster will require the chopsticks to go higher than the QD arm. So one way or another, it has to be possible. It's just a matter of moving the QD arm out of the way, which we've seen it rotate into position, out of position a couple times. So totally a thing. We just haven't seen it happen yet.
It'll be so cool to see this all this ground infrastructure testing for the first time. I am so excited for the chopstick, like doing some active and big movement for the first time. That would be a cool day to see.
Judd Nichols is saying Ship 20 could be lifted with a new frame plugged into attach holes under the forward flaps. Some kind of like cradle that lifts it in that manner, I suppose, would be possible. Perhaps
it would be possible, but I haven't seen any pieces for that yet, so I guess we'll know once we see some pieces for that delivered.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because when they move the booster load spreader, that spreader bar, to the launch site, it's hard to miss. And when they move a transport stand around, that's also hard to miss. And so I would expect, if that is a thing, that we will eventually see parts of that delivered, and I don't think we have seen that yet. But doesn't mean it won't happen. And that would make logical sense, that the crane attach points on the nose are only temporary and for use during manufacturing, and then at a certain point they seal those off and lift Starship with some other method that allows them to maintain the integrity of the heat shield without having to, like, pull a couple hexagons off, put attach points on, then take the attach points off again, then put a couple hexagons. That seems like too fussy. So yeah, entirely plausible there.
Just hop it onto the booster.
Just hop it. I don't even care where. Just hop it. I want more flight testing, please. Let's see.
Yeah, methane went slightly up. Like methane tank, not methane, but methane tank. It's only very, 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 very slightly though.
Venting, you say?
Oh no, it went like up. The frost ring on the methane tank had like a very tiny movement to the top, but it can only be like pressure control, where they try to balance it out and hold it at certain pressure. So it's cool, but not like big at this point.
It's literally cool because it's liquid nitrogen.
Yeah, it's very cool. In fact,
it's ice cold.
We are very funny.
You know you're funny when you have to announce the fact that you are funny. That's the best type of joke.
I mean, I'm German. What's your excuse?
Don't have one.
Wow. Almost looks like a waterfall of ice crystals coming out of the bottom of that.
It's like kind of hypnotic.
Yeah.
Just about.
It's like one of these 24 videos where you just have 24 hours videos where you have ambience in the background. It's just helping you to relax. Yeah, could see that.
And you got these 3 random voices talking over each other.
Let's see, what else do we have
ambience.
here? Scott is asking, do you think they will use the chopsticks as support for a launch like a strong back or folded to the side like they are now?
I hadn't thought of that.
Well, I don't think that they can, once they've stacked a ship on top of a booster, I don't think there's enough clearance for one arm to go up above the ship and then both arms to be off to one side. I think it would have to sort of be in a V formation, as one on either side, spread out as much as possible. I'm not positive on that, but that's my gut feeling. And so that answers the second part of your question. As to whether or not they'd be used for support, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the role of the QD arm up top, and the chopsticks will just be sitting off to the side, but we don't really know that yet. There would have to be some sort of additional location for the chopsticks to attach onto, in addition to the booster's attach point there right by the grid fins, because that's too close to the QD. So, I don't know. I don't think they would put an extra attach point on there just for chopstick stabilization ahead of launch, but I could be completely wrong.
Well, I would say that one counter to that might be for heavy wind loads, because sometimes, being in the Gulf of Mexico, there are some tropical storms that can come by, and we've seen them lower Franken crane and Bucky and some of the bigger cranes, and they'll actually set them down on the ground because of wind loads. And I know that they also have to take certain precautions with the Starships and the boosters when there are high wind loads. So I wonder if they could have some way to, attach the chopsticks just to keep everything extra secure during a storm.
I mean, maybe, yeah. And even if they're not physically attached, even if they're just sort of hugging the booster, I wonder how much utility they would get out of that.
Yeah, probably not a lot. It'll make me feel better. How about that?
Yeah, if you right now rewind 2 minutes, you can definitely see the frost ring on the methane tank went up. It's very clear now if you rewind 2 minutes.
Yeah, it looks like it's they're increasing the amount of nitrogen in the methane tank again. Interesting.
Woohoo.
So test not over yet.
Tourist is asking, what's the chance of this project failing? I don't think there's really much of a chance of it failing. I think it's more a question of how wildly will it succeed. I know that might sound flippant, but really, I think this system will work. I think SpaceX is accomplished enough with landing Falcon 9s and accomplished enough as an organization building rockets that they can build a viable architecture here. It's more of a matter of, will it be as successful in increasing the access to space and lowering the cost and making humans multiplanetary, as Elon has stated is his goal. So that's why I answer in that way. What do you guys think, Adrian?
I kind of agree that we saw them performing a successful belly flop, which is a huge thing for me because I always feared that maneuver. And after that, it's more about, for me, will they be able to move the industry in the way they wanted to move with Starship? And will they be able to generate that kind of traction to Mars they want? That's for me the interest at this point. It's only a matter of when they will complete the whole infrastructure for me, and compared to if. So yeah, that's my take on it. What do you say, Nick?
Yeah, I think SpaceX has been putting a lot more time and thought than anyone here talking on the stream, or probably anyone watching has had time to think about this. I know that SpaceX is kind of iterative in their design model, so they might spend a lot of work on one idea or one path from that real quick. But I think it's important to remember that no matter what happens, SpaceX is only going to fly if they are confident that it will work. And, with SN8, 9, 10, and 11, it didn't. 10 almost, depends on how you count that. But I think when they light the engines, they'll have a pretty good idea of how well it's going to work.
Yeah, I completely agree. After Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, I have a lot of trust in SpaceX probably achieving their engineering goals. The question is more in what shape or form and how much of a success it will be. And also, like somebody in chat says, so many variables to take, to have a real guess.
Yeah, and that it, as far as them being confident in their ability to do it, yes, they're going to have a high amount of confidence before they launch anything, because these things are expensive to make and there's a bunch of risk involved. I think they have to buy like $100 million insurance plan or something kind of crazy like that. So they have a high confidence that it's going to work. However, it's not 99% confident or whatnot. So I think it's they'll clear the tower. Let me put it that way. I think they'll clear the tower. Whether or not they survive all the way through orbit with Ship 20, I don't know. Through reentry, I don't know. SpaceX doesn't either, obviously, which is why we need to do these tests. These tests will only give us more data.
Yes. And what always is interesting for me doing these tests is like when you notice all the just a completely different topic, but I just noticed it again, like how big these infrastructure is. Because when you look at the bottom of the pad, you see these vehicles standing there, and then you just notice that how big this whole operation is and how big this booster is. And it's always a cool moment when you notice that during testing how big all of this is. And I mean, you have more first person experience of that because you are there all day.
That's probably one of my favorite things whenever I get to talk with a listener who comes and makes the trek down to Starbase. That's one of my things that I always try to ask people. What do you think of the scale? Because even for me, watching this get built out at home before moving down here and covering this, I was just in awe of how big this all is. Like, these starships are 9 meters in diameter. That's like 26 something feet. Like, these things are huge. And that's just in their diameter. And they're tall, 50 meters tall for the starships and 69 for the boosters. And then the tower's like 400 and something feet tall. It's just like, really almost can't grasp the scale until you're able to look and see, oh wow, that's a person walking around at the top of that launch tower. So small, but it's so worth it to come down here and see it. If anyone has an opportunity to, I highly recommend it, because while you do get to see a lot through the live streams and the different daily videos that Mary and I put together, or all the different Starbase live cameras and whatnot, or even these commentated streams, just walking around down here, you get to a much better sense of the scale. And let me tell you, the scale is bigger than you think. Whatever you're thinking it is, it's bigger than that.
Yeah, I can't wait to go there in hopefully the end of the year. Like next year, not this year, obviously, because that would be very hard to make.
Yeah, just a couple days left to make that one happen. But yeah, that is so cool to see all these people, and lots of people who come down here don't even really know what's going on. Like, a lot of local Brownsville people will be going to the beach or whatever, and they'll be like, "Hey, is that spaceship gonna launch today?" And I'm like, "No, he wouldn't be here if it was launching today." It's crazy. Yeah. So I'm seeing people are bringing up that 18-meter version of Starship. Like, is that still in the works? Do you remember, Adrian? Is that still in the pipes, or is that kind of scrapped?
I mean, that was. I'm thinking about like 12 meters ITS, right? Wasn't ITS 12 meters? And I'm getting the numbers confused at this point.
Yeah, those are going to be big. I know the cryo shell covers are 12 meters in diameter, and so those are significantly larger in diameter than the Starship pieces. They take up the entire road. Like a Starship takes up, like, they drive down the middle of the 2-lane highway, and it takes up a good portion of the road. But when they drive a 12-meter tank section down that road, it's spilling over the shoulder on both sides of the road. It's kind of cool. Those are some big tanks.
I have a question here from Calm Code that I want to bring up because I think it's a good one while you are on stream, which is what material is under the launch pad? It couldn't be dirt or concrete, right? Because it could hurt the engines. So what is under the launch pad?
I actually don't know exactly what it is, but I know with SN8 they used Martite, which is a mixture of concrete and I think it's some kind of aggregate that they have in there as well. But that didn't fare too well, and I'm not sure why with SN8 specifically it was like throwing up chunks of Martite, and don't know if it failed because it wasn't thick enough or they had some engineering things that they hadn't quite figured out yet. But, underneath the booster right now, they're probably going to build up some kind of flame diverter system. I would be kind of shocked if they didn't, just based on how much thrust these 29 Raptors and soon to be 33 Raptors are going to be producing. If you have all of this thrust going directly to the ground without any kind of angle or extremely powerful water deluge system, which I know they have a little bit one of one, but possibly more than that, then those, really the problem is sound, right? The sound waves emitted from these Raptors are really what's going to hurt your engine. The heat, not so much, and even the exhaust particles are probably not going to hurt the steel quite as much as the sound waves. And so if you just have a flat surface that kind of acts as like a mirror that will reflect the sound right back onto those really fragile Raptors, that seems a little risky to me, and it seems fairly easy enough just to stick like a skateboard ramp type of just angled piece of steel at the bottom, steel and concrete, just to divert that sound waves and all that energy coming out of the bottom of the booster in a different direction that isn't reflecting right back up into the booster. So all that to say, I don't know what is currently under there. I'm fairly certain it's just concrete. I bet you if you look back at some of RGV aerial photographies or some of the other aerial photographers, you might be able to discern what type of material that is. But I would imagine they're not quite done with the bottom of the tower there. We will see what they do down there.
Wonderful. And just to point that out again, if you have questions for us, make sure to tag at NASASpaceflight in chat so we can see your questions and bring them up on stream.
I think part of what happened with the Martite with SN8 was the pad had just been subjected to so many Raptor firings that it became weakened and shattered under the force of a static fire a couple times. Martite is a pretty commonly used I don't even know what you want to call it. Not really an additive, but I guess construction material in flame trenches. So I wouldn't be shocked if they just slathered a bunch of Martite down there. I don't know if we'll ever see a flame diverter. I think even Elon has said that they're not planning on doing a flame diverter. It's kind of like a long-running gag that it's like, hey, you might want to do a flame diverter because it's kind of dumb to not. So it wouldn't shock me if we do end up seeing one. It also wouldn't shock me if we don't.
Yeah, that's a good point though, Jack. I mean, it probably will work without it, but in my mind, it's just like, yeah, get a piece of steel. It doesn't take that much effort, and I feel like it would kind of hedge the risk a little bit. Yeah, it would be a fairly easy thing to do that could improve your chances of orbit. But if Elon says they don't need it, then I guess they don't need it.
Yep, there you go. There's a tweet from Elon saying no flame diverter in Boca. Could turn out to be a mistake. So even he is acknowledging that it could be a mistake to go without one. Something tells me though that they've sized the launch mount and its height up above the ground level in order to accommodate no flame diverter. I don't know if that's enough space to allow that force to dissipate, but the entire design of the mount seems very suited to not being an impedance to that plume and allowing it to sort of just dissipate in all directions. But who knows what we'll see in place there. Another thing is that venting that we can hear?
Yeah, we just had another vent.
Nice. Another thought about that is that how are they going to access the Raptors from up underneath the mount if there's a big chunkin' piece of metal flame diverter there? So it would have to be a mobile flame diverter, and how do you get a flame diverter big enough sort of wedged in between two of the legs, or would it have to be like an asterisk shape and sort of all, in between each leg is like a mobile wedge shape, and they all move to the center, and it creates like a juicer kind of looking thing, for lack of a better.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like there's ways they could do it, but it sure doesn't seem like this launch mount was built with a flame diverter in mind.
Yeah, it was probably it really seems like it was built to give as much space as possible.
Yep.
For the plume to exit.
Yep. Rolf is asking, what is B2.1 doing at the moment, and what are SpaceX's plans for it? We don't know, and we don't know. Test tanks are used for structural qualification of manufacturing methods and construction materials. So if they have a new design of something, like, say, a 33-engine thrust puck versus a 29-engine thrust puck, wouldn't shock me that they would make a test tank using one of those pucks and then do some structural testing on it. I believe that B2.1 has a 29-engine puck, for reference.
This is accurate.
But point being that all of these test tanks are used to validate the ways they're building things and the things they're building things out of. So I know it's not as satisfying as being able to say B2.1 was used for testing of this specific component on this specific pressure and blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, it's safe to say all these test tanks are used as structural test qualification articles, and so that is what they used it for. If it'll be used further, I guess that'll remain to be seen. I suspect 2.1 will be retired in favor of the B6 test tank that they are now building. That's in the high bay right now, right?
I believe B6 got rolled out behind SN16.
Oh,
that test tank that they made.
It's over in the party zone. Got it.
It is in the party zone.
The party zone.
I like that, Jack.
Novin, thank you for the support. They say, what do you guys think the purpose of intelligent life is in the universe if it's going to end at one point? That's like super philosophical. I'm just going to go with to live. Intelligent life is a way for the universe to know itself. I don't know. We can get really meta here. What do you think, Adrian?
I'm not even like there's a very big question for
right?
My not qualified mind to answer it, I feel. So
I'm gonna need a couple more cups of coffee and maybe a couple more glasses of whiskey in order to answer this fully.
Yes.
And Jade Hansen, thank you for the support and becoming a PadRat member.
And
go for it.
Just to update on what is happening, it seems like they increased the fillings of the upper tank until a certain level, and then stopped again because it stopped there, and since then it hasn't moved. So we basically moved from one hold to another, it seems.
Yuck.
And we have 2 more hours in the window to go. The window goes until 6 p.m. local time.
Chris Fletcher is saying, you folks care to speculate about whether stretch tanks equals taller ship or less cargo space? I think we're all thinking taller ship, right?
Yes,
Ooh,
I would think
really good point.
taller ship.
I'd imagine just from an engineering perspective, it would be easier for them to add new ring segments where they already had welds going than redo the nose cone area and move that dome a little. Yeah, I'll say that's my final answer. It'd be easier for them just to add rings.
I would agree.
And how many more rings do you think they'll need?
I don't know. I wish I did.
Well, it's probably speculate a little here. Probably like 3 or 4 would be my guess if we're going to add 3 RVAC engines that are probably only going to be used for the last half of the second stage burn.
I would suspect that they're going to burn them all at once. All
Okay.
12 engines. Or, sorry, all 9 engines.
If we burn
then
12 engines on the Starship, I'm going to lose it.
Because they minimize gravity losses by burning them all at once. So that's why they even are still going to burn the sea level Raptors at the same time. It's just because you minimize your gravity losses.
Interesting.
Just casually raising the engine number here to 12, by the way. Just
Yeah,
one
right.
Elon tweet away.
Hey, it's only a matter of time at this rate.
Yeah, true.
Kind of talked about this earlier, but it's worth talking about again. Calm Code is asking, will any crew missions happen here since there's no way to get to the ship? They can always build a crew access arm, right? When we get to that point?
Yeah. I would imagine, like, if they want to support crew launches here, they could. But I would also not be surprised if crew in the early stages of the Starship program would be happening in Florida.
Right, that makes perfect sense too.
I'm still my vote's still a base jump or a rope ladder or something. That's way more exciting.
Giant fireman's pole.
I mean, you have all the infrastructure to support a crew launch. I mean, it's not only a crew access arm. It's all these processing facilities and basically what we all see in these Dragon streams when they prepare the crew. That's all infrastructure you need to launch crew, right? And
This is Starship. Just give them an oxygen mask off an airplane.
Am I raining on somebody's parade?
Yes, I am really, really hoping for monkey bars or a rope ladder or a fireman pole or something fun. I mean, we got to do something different down here.
How about one of those like water jetpacks? Have you seen those? It's like connected to a jet ski and you can fly around with water jets strapped to your back. I mean, the ocean's right there. Come on.
Totally.
I'm gonna rate it as plausible. Definitely plausible.
Okay.
Plausible.
With a healthy dose of sarcasm, if you couldn't tell. JLPTV is saying, do you think they would stack Ship 21 on Booster 5 for display? I'm going to say no. Just because wind loading and whatnot, that'd be a serious endeavor. You can't just have that sitting there sort of free floating. But never say never. It wouldn't surprise me. At this point, having a mechanized launch tower that catches a ship in a booster, nothing in Starbase will surprise me. I'll be shocked, maybe a little bit delighted, but not surprised.
I mean, we would need some serious foundation to secure that whole vehicle, and probably would need to fill it up to make it like a little bit more heavy.
Oh, Adrian.
Yes.
You know what they could fill it with?
Oh no.
Water. It could be a water tower.
That would be a lot of water. that would be a significant amount of water. Oh, ship.
Boat.
I love this view so much.
Bye, boat.
I can't help but think, like, when you're a kid and you're playing, hockey or basketball or whatever, you're playing in the road in your neighborhood and the car's coming and it's like, car! You have to take the thing and, like, move it out of the road. Almost like what we're seeing here, except not really, because the channel is much farther away. But, anyways, just remembering childhood. Forgive me.
It was a ship next to a boat in this picture. Get
Nice.
it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I get it. I see what you're doing there.
Yay.
Starboat.
Starboat. That's a new name for the upper stage now.
It's kind of cursed.
It's after it lands softly above Hawaii.
It becomes Starboat.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. What are they going to do with Ship 20 if, I mean, it's a big if it lands in one piece up north of Hawaii? Are they going to sink it on purpose or tow it back and do something with it? Like,
On purpose. That's what they've done with Falcon 9s in the past.
No! It made it! It was trying to live, Jack. Don't kill it.
Nope, it's gonna die. Gonna die forever.
No. But if you sink it, then Jeff is gonna go find the engines.
I mean, that's fair. But hey, bonus, it'll become a coral reef and provide a habitat for some wildlife.
Okay.
Now that's a fancy habitat to have.
Yeah, if I ever woke up and I was a fish, that's where I'd be moving to. For sure.
Look at that bull snort. I would just call it that vent on the left side.
That is a nitrogen tank, right?
That should be the case.
It's number... I don't know. Every time I think I know which one the GSC tanks are, I am always wrong.
Oh, man.
The question is if that is comparable to the other bull snort vent on the suborbital side, which usually comes up when they are depressuring. But we'll see. But it's one of these vents that I will note down as interesting.
We've seen that vent quite a lot, even just when they're not testing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've heard that vent before.
Okay, so Michael is helping us out here. Locks are the 2 on the left, the 3 on the left. Then there's liquid nitrogen sort of in the center, and then the water tank in the back, behind the liquid nitrogen and to the right of the locks. And then the 2 on the right are methane.
Wow.
So the bull snort we're seeing right now is coming from a nitrogen tank, sure enough. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Beautiful artwork.
Still looks stable to me. Yeah. It's very, very stable. You can rewind 5 minutes and basically see no change at all.
I do sort of wonder, because we do see different behaviors in that plume coming from underneath the launch mount. I wonder if that's just wind direction or if the different intensities we've seen down there are indicative of anything. So many questions.
Yeah, it could do like make sure that the tanks still hold their pressure and just do some Raptor testing right now. Like we saw, for example, we saw them move the Raptors before, and with the one Elon video where they showed the Raptor's gimbal.
Yeah, that TVC test was so cool.
Yeah, that was such a cool video, and I love how somebody pointed out that it looks like 9 engines, like the Falcon 9, but then there's like another ring of engines just around it. And the engines are more powerful than Merlin. So, just gives you a perspective on power of this vehicle. It's powerful. Spoiler.
It's super powerful. Let's see. Pastor Bill is saying, referring to the comments about the catch arms after positioning the ship, I suspect they may leave the arms connected to the hard points on the ship until just before launch. Plausible.
I don't know, maybe.
Again, the QD arm comes into play there, though. Because, like, what would that sequence look like? They would detach the QD arm, move it out of the way, then move the chopsticks down just before launch? Something like that might make sense. I mean,
or
it's one of those things that we kind of just have to wait and see, and that's part of what's exciting about all this, is there's a lot of unknowns that we are looking for the answers to, and that's why we care about seemingly minor minutia every day at Starbase, is because you never know when you're going to learn the answer to one of these questions.
It's always these things about when you track something or when you look at all these rings that are going around. It's always that one little info that you get from there that then leads to knowing something that you previously didn't know. It's that kind of watching it that makes the difference between just watching it and understanding maybe a little tiny bit more.
So what you're saying is we need to make a tank understander shirt, not just a tank watcher shirt.
Yes.
Only Elon will be able to wear that T-shirt.
Yeah, right. Texas tank understander. It just doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah, I think we need to work on the branding there.
We'll workshop it. We'll come back to you guys next stream. Don't worry. I know you're all worried. Don't worry.
It will be done in a webinar.
Oh my God! Stop with the webinar.
Sorry.
Mate asking, have we seen the grid fins moving yet? I think the answer is no, right, Nick?
I'm sorry. I was checking out a tweet here. What did you say?
Have we seen the grid fins moving yet?
Oh, grid fins. No, actually, I have not seen any of them move. However, see people up there all the time, especially before Booster 4 made it over onto the orbital launch mount. There was a skyjack and people up there like every day for a solid like 2 months. So I would not be surprised at all if they did move a couple inches one direction and the other at some point when they had people working up there. But as far as like a full-on, test, kind of like they do with the Starship flaps, I have not seen that, and I'm not aware of that happening. However, I would imagine that they've probably proofed it a little bit to the point where they're pretty sure it's all hooked up correctly, at least.
We have people in chat suggesting all kinds of different names. Tanker Stander, Texas Tank Professor, Texas Tank Thinker, Tank Comprehender.
I like that one.
Tank Whisperer. We got some good ones.
Ooh,
we got some good
Tank
suggestions
Whisperer.
here.
That's a good one.
Mark, thank you for the support. They say, thanks to NSF for all your content and streams that made 2021 bearable. Disappointed about the lack of kayaking webinars, though. Liebig Gross Adrian. What does that mean? Big love to Adrian?
Yeah, that means kind, like, I am not even sure how to translate it. Like, greetings, I guess.
Nice. I'm not going to do a kayaking webinar, but I will do an oven bacon webinar. You guys can count on that. That'll happen sometime. More venting sounds.
Yeah, I hear venting.
See that vent up near the QD arm in the angle that we were just looking at. Harry Young, also thank you for the support. Getting philosophical again, they say the purpose of sentient life is to wonder why it being there might be more beneficial to the universe than not being there. Nothing is without reason. Hey, whatever floats your philosophical boat or starship, whatever flies your philosophical star. I got nothing. I'm sorry. I'm petering out here. Need more
That
coffee.
needs to be a T-shirt. Whatever flies your philosophical starship. T-shirt idea.
Let's see. Panther Aerospace is asking, is Ship 24 going to be the first with the stretch tanks? I don't think we know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I don't think
not
anybody
sure.
does.
Robert Keeper,
SpaceX,
go for it.
SpaceX kind of has a habit sometimes to use some parts for something different suddenly and change what they wanted to do with a part. So it's always, yeah, you would hope you understand which ring and which stack is for which, but then it just changes at one point, and yeah.
And then
you
the
got
fun
nothing.
part is it changes back later.
Oh yeah, and then naming becomes a topic.
Oh gosh.
Boy, no. The number of times
Naming
they've changed
always
the naming
becomes
schemes on us, I hate that so much.
I
Technically,
love
Ship 20 is Ship 14, but I'm not going to go there.
Don't.
Uh-oh.
It's such a mess.
have this image of a presentation where Jack is like pointing at a screen. Ship 20 should be called Ship 14. Changed my mind. Like the meme for it.
I mean, 12 was scrapped. The next one after 11 was 15, so 15 technically would be 12. Then 16 was built but never flown, so that would be 13, which is appropriate because it's cursed. And then that would make 20 14.
Well, there was 17 and 18. We saw ring segments for those. But, yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. Put it that way.
I mean, you also have SN2 in this order, so you would have to do the
Mark
whole...
1? Mark 1 needs to fit in here somehow.
Right, so maybe Ship 20's ultimately ship... Okay, no, let's stop. This is bad. This is bad. Abort!
Abort! Are we doing RTLS or downrange or return to orbit?
It's destructive.
Return to orbit is my favorite abort, by the way.
Yeah, that abort mode on the shuttle was crazy. Yeah, this isn't working. Let's keep going.
Hey, it's better than doing an RTLS and a full shuttle stack.
Yeah. Nope.
That has to be a record, by the way. We are how long in this stream? 2:30, and I think this was the first time shuttle was mentioned.
No, really?
I'm not sure. Was it mentioned before? Is this the longest time we ever went on a NASA spaceflight stream without shuttle?
I think we might all be fired. You guys, I think we might be fired.
I think that's it.
The good thing Chris G's a little distracted with James Webb, so he probably won't notice.
Crispy mentioning it was mentioned before in chat.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
All right, so our jobs are safe for now.
Yeah.
But we need to be better in the future.
Look at the vent on the tank farm. That looks cool. How it basically encapsulated the top of the tank. I love it.
Here's a question. Robin is asking, why would they do a cryo test 2 times in one day?
Because...
Go ahead, Adrian.
Oh, go ahead, Nick. No.
No, you go. No, you go. You go ahead. No, I'll take it.
Okay, I will just start. Here we go. Because oh my god. Okay, because they might have different test objectives with different tests. Or because the first test was aborted for some reason and they needed a second one. Or because the first test, after looking at the data, showed something they want to test again, and they test again. So the answer is many, many different reasons.
I can also think of another one, which would be the booster is going to be used over and over and over again, and so it's going to experience a lot of cryo loading cycles, and so maybe they just want to test multiple cycles.
True. I was thinking it's a lot of work to clear the pad and do one of these tests. So while they have the road cleared, it's advantageous for them to do as many tests as they can. That's why sometimes you'll see them double up on like a Ship 20 static fire and a GSC Tank 4 test tank pressure test all at once, because once the road's cleared, it's a lot of work to get that cleared. More tests, the better.
And just for you ice on steel enjoyers here in the chat, the ice is climbing again on both tanks. If you rewind like 4 minutes, you can see it increased on both tanks a bit, and yeah, it seems like it's rising again.
Well, hey. More tests equal more data, which equals more good?
More better, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Robert Keeper is saying, time to make a flow chart for it. I think they're talking about the ship numbering that we were talking about earlier. And Jonathan Tanner has, in fact, made us a flow chart. I guess a textual flow chart. But yeah, pretty hilarious the way that naming works out in the world of SpaceX. Kevin, thank you for becoming a new member. Thanks for coming in at PadRat, buddy. You get member emoji, you get preview videos, you get all kinds of good stuff. So thank you for the support there. Hamster Space Nerd, thank you for the support. They say, been a space nerd for a year now. Here to 2022. I suspect you mean here's to 2022. Sure enough, gonna be a good year. A lot of cool stuff happening in 2022. Maybe even James Webb at this rate. I'm sorry.
Oh my God,
sorry.
Jack!
Chris G's
You
gonna fire
just went there. I'm sorry, Jack. Wow. We need to find a new host here. What is going on?
And Blackhawk New Zealand, or Blackhawk NZ, thank you for becoming a launch director. That is one of the higher end tiers of our membership program, and thus we are extra thankful. So seriously,
Thank you, Blackhawk.
your name will be mentioned, or your name will be brought up on screen at the end of NASA Spaceflight Live episodes. Keep an eye out for that.
Ooh.
So right now, the frost appears to be increasing on both tanks, and we have about an hour and a half left in the window. That is the current state of play.
Yes.
Christian Anderson, thanks for becoming a pad rat. Thank you to all of our new members on this stream. It's always cool to see. Starbase Texas is asking, is this the personification of the location? Interesting. Is asking, for you, how many static fires before a 29 engine static fire?
Oh, that's a fun guess.
I'm gonna say 3. I think they'll do the center 9. I think they'll do the outer 10, and then I think they will do the other outer ring. Maybe like, each individual ring, and then on that 4th one, they'll do a 29 engine static fire. They could also just go straight to 29 engines, right? Like, what do I know? I'm just spitballing here. What do you guys think?
I think it will be the
For me-
5th one.
What?
I think it will be the 5th one because they will do the first, the center 9, then they will redo the center 9 because something didn't work well. Then they will do the outer ones, then they will redo that again, and then they will fire all.
Plausible.
I think it's kind of all dependent on the FAA and how fast they can get their launch license. Because if they can get it early January, then I would imagine they'll skip a couple of the static fires in favor of lighting the candle. So, could be soon.
Here's one for Adrian. Stephanie Ball's asking, is there a new spreadsheet for the orbital launch system?
Not yet a spreadsheet. I'm taking notes about all the events. Like I have a Word document open, and just taking some notes, like making some screenshot what I find interesting. But the problem is that these cryo tests are not always a great indicator in terms of timings. So I'm not at the position right now where I like it actually like how it was pre-SN5 at this point, because I first need to find out what are the indicators I'm even looking at, because I don't know how this whole tank farm behaves. So first step is find indicators, and then time them and use them.
I'm looking for some more questions. Don't forget, in chat at NASASpaceflight, and we'll see your question pop up, and we might answer it.
I love the look of the lower LOX tank, by the way. How it basically has this small gradient from going white to silver. I just love that effect, and
It's really
cool. It's
gorgeous.
looking cool.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. It looks really, really cool. And it is cool because it's got cryogenic liquid nitrogen in it.
And that
It's
might
literally
even
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. We recycled that joke.
Just like they recycled the test. Okay.
Yes.
Oh my
yeah.
goodness! Wow, I just got that. I was trying to fit that one, and then it clicked. Wow.
But yeah, the thing is, this might be like we always see when they fuel for the flights that the frost rings or the condensation rings with methane and liquid oxygen are a bit less icy than these cryo tanks, cryo tests. So this might be close to what we might see doing these tests, like the flight. So I'm really looking forward for the first pictures of a fully fueled Starship with Super Heavy below it on the pad, getting ready to launch, like fully fueled, getting ready, and seeing all the condensation on the outside. That will be such a cool view, and yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, that's really going to be something. And kind of in a similar vein to what you're just saying, Bobski is asking, will they at some point completely fill the tanks? Well, for flight they will, but if you're asking for cryo specifically, that is a good question that I don't think we know the answer to, right?
Nope, we don't know. It depends.
Wayne, and I know we've asked this already on the stream, but some people might be watching that didn't hear that part. Wayne is asking, is the water tank missing some paint? What are we seeing with the horizontal lines that we don't see on the other tanks? I believe that is either some reinforcement that was added to that tank or some weld inspection sort of behavior going on there.
Yeah,
I think it's reinforcements, right?
Yeah, those are reinforcements. There isn't a internal tank on the water tank, so it's just that 12-meter outside white shell. All of the other tanks actually have a 9-meter GSC tank, and back when they were making those were the same size as the Starship rings. And then they sleeved those with these larger 12-meter tanks, and then they stuck insulation between them. But with the water tank, they're not dealing with cryogenic temperatures, and so they were able to skip the interior-exterior tank and just have an exterior tank and fill it, the whole 12 meters, up with water. But they needed it stronger, obviously, so they added those little ribs around the outside to support it a little bit better.
Yeah, cooling your water to cryogenic temperatures wouldn't probably go well in that tank. Guess it would be ice.
I mean, it would be great if you were looking to, make a big ice cube, but if you wanted to pump it anywhere, it would be difficult.
12-meter ice cube.
Wonder if you stuck that out, if you made a 12-meter ice cube and stuck it outside in the Texas heat, how long into the summer would that last?
At that point, is it technically a berg?
I think a berg has to be in the water, so maybe you have to put it in the water.
The thing is, SpaceX has the potential here to answer all of these questions. They just need to do it.
Exactly. Make a 12-meter ice cube, SpaceX. Hurry up.
Or ice cylinder in this case.
Very true.
Space KB says, just came over from the Mr. Beast Team C's live stream and noticed how similar Jack and Carl voices sound. Do I sound like Mr. Beast? Is that a thing? I've never really watched any of his stuff. Weird.
I watch it, but I'm not sure if I agree that your voice sounds like. So, not sure.
Connor is asking, how long do you think to fully fuel the full stack? This is an Adrian question if I've ever heard one.
Oh yeah, no way I will totally get this wrong. So the answer is I don't know, because the thing that I'm missing here is orbital launchpad data. So far we only saw fueling being done on the suborbital tank farm and the suborbital launch site, and I don't know how much faster or slower the orbital tank farm will be. So it's really a question that I can't answer right now, and I just have to wait and see and wait for the first tests. And even then, I think so far never saw a fully fueled Starship nor Super Heavy on any pad at all. Like, they never fueled it completely out.
That's true.
So I'm kind of lacking data for that, and it's always a lot of variables you have to consider, and yeah, I don't know at this point. I hope to find out in the future, but it's always a process.
In follow-up, Space KB meant I sounded like Carl, not Mr. Beast himself. So we can all debate that in chat. Go for it. Let's see. Robert Pitt, I don't know that we're going to be able to have an answer for you here, but they're asking, why is there such a difference in the way frost forms on the LOX tank versus the methane tank? I mean, I have no idea.
I would say probably the way how much it is filled. Then you probably have things like certain lighting and heating of the weather situation right now, because sometimes it doesn't really look consistent over the whole tank because of certain angles the sun is shining on it. So it just the answer is sometimes it isn't consistent. It wasn't in a test before. It probably won't be in this test. So yeah, variety of factors.
Looking for some more questions.
And by the way, the top ring is still increasing. It's very slow, but if you rewind again 4 minutes and go live again, it's still going up. It's not stopping yet. At this point, it is over the I think another weld for the next ring, and it's climbing up to the next one and freezing the outer shell of the booster, which is kind of the same wall that is also the tank wall, because what you see here is the tank wall. It's just the outside of it. There's no tank inside it. It is the tank.
I had a question. I did not get to it soon enough before it moved off.
We have venting.
Beautiful.
It was just the left vent. They just opened the left one.
It looked like there was a downward component as well as a vertical component. I'm going to go back and rewatch that.
How they get all of the directions going, downward and vertical.
Let's see if they will fire the others as well. They maybe do like a series of tests with all the vents now. But so far it was only like the one on the left in the middle, right? That was activated just here. I mean, we saw all of them fire before, but I mean, more ice than fire, but yeah.
It does look like there was an upwards flow and a downwards flow. I don't know, maybe the upwards flow is just residual from something like is created by the downwards venting. I don't know. It looked interesting, that's for sure.
And there was the vent to the left side, by the way.
Robert says we should name these nostrils, the left and right nostril.
Nope.
Can I pitch again the mustache vent?
Nope.
Why?
Because I say so, okay?
Okay, that's understandable.
Yeah, that's a good reason. I agree.
Yeah.
Yep, completely sound reason.
Totally logical, I would say.
Ooh, good question here. Too bad that Chris isn't on board to help us answer this. How many SRBs could you fit around Booster 4?
Enough.
I'm thinking at least 2.
Yeah, wild guess.
You could fit plenty. Let's go with. I think I'll go with plenty as my answer.
Yeah. But do we really need so much thrust?
Yes.
Of course.
You always need more thrust.
You can never have more. Have you not played Kerbal Space Program? You always need more thrust.
Yeah, more boosters, more thrust, more struts. You're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about this before, Jack, but we have a very different Kerbal Space Program experience.
Yeah, you. I don't even know what you do. I just am kind of like, wee, build, smash, fun. You are like spreadsheeting your Kerbal, each individual launch vehicle and all of that stuff, aren't you?
Yes, I try to cost optimize them. So I try to make them cheaper and more efficient, because that's fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
A little bit more enthusiasm would be cool, but yeah.
You do you, Adrian. However you want to play Kerbal, I'm not going to Kerbal shame you.
Oh, no Kerbal shaming here.
I remember one time I had Das help me with a problem I was having with retrieving a ship in a wacky orbit, and I sent him the save file, and he opened it up, and he looked at the thing I had built and was like, "Oh God, why would you do this?" It's like, we all play differently. It's okay.
Can I interrupt for a second? I think we saw a significant increase in the ground vent on the right side, like the pipes that go to the orbital launch pad from the tank farm in the last few seconds. I have been watching that, and chat also was so nice to point it out that it increased again. So, and as I say that, it probably, no, it's still going, but that might be more nitrogen flowing through the ground pipes and them freezing up more.
I wonder if it's flowing
weaponization
to the vehicle or from the vehicle.
See, I also was interested in that, but it started on the right side and moved to the left. So I would say it's going from the tank farm to the vehicle.
I'd believe that. After the previous round this morning or earlier in the day, we saw that the venting from the common dome area, and then things started to recede, right? And so we just saw venting from there again, and now I'm wondering if we're going to see the frost start to recede again, or if it will perhaps increase or stay the same, or what?
Yeah. Also, at some point, they need to increase the filling of the low booster again as well, right? At least how I understand it.
Yeah, we don't want any SN3 situations today.
Ooh. Yeah, no SN3 here.
No test configuration error, please, and thank you. QuadId is asking, how is the whole tanking thing done? Do they use pumps to get the propellant from the tank farm into the vehicle, or is it just pressure driven? Thank you, and keep up the great work. Oh, they most definitely use pumps.
Yes.
We even saw them in a recent daily video installing a massive multi-stage pump, which is exactly what that would be used for.
Yeah, I think in the early days of Hopper, you could even people calling out that they hear pumps spooling up before a test. Like, I remember reading tweets about that people that were there sometimes with the right wind direction could tell if the pumps were spooling up because they heard it. Like, I remember that, but I wasn't there, so.
I do not remember hearing pumps, but my memory is also fallible, so there you go.
But I definitely remember people tweeting about that were there, so.
Super cool. Oh, the good old days.
The good thing about this, so just to add some notes I already made, what is cool about this this launch site and the orbital launch pad is that we will be very able to see if they start fueling, because you will always see the ground lines freezing. So that is always a nice indicator to help us understand this process, because I don't see a way how that would not be visible if they start.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there was just another little methane vent up top there.
Like methane tank vent.
Yeah, exactly. Methane tank vent, not actual methane, because they're just using liquid nitrogen today.
As of right now, the frost in the lux tank is decreasing, while the frost in the methane tank is increasing. So they're still filling up that methane tank with liquid nitrogen, I should add.
Here's a question from Michael saying, if they change the height of Starship to accommodate more propellant for the engines, is the launch tower tall enough to accommodate lifting and fueling?
What? That's a really good question. I hadn't even thought of that.
Fueling, yeah. Lifting, that's a good question.
Yeah. Huh.
My answer for this is I hope so.
It would suck if they had to make it taller.
Yeah, I really hope that. But I mean, in the end, the engineers at SpaceX have a lot of more access to data and capabilities of certain infrastructure. So I would at least hope that they know before if they can increase it, or if that would result in a complete redo of the launch infrastructure.
I doubt it would result in a complete redo. I mean, they could just put the lifting points lower down on Starship, up to a certain point, I'm sure, then it becomes less stable. But the QD for fueling of the ship can stay at the same height, because the QD on the ship will presumably remain in the same location. So,
yeah, I guess that means they can't change the height of the booster then, huh?
No. But, I mean, would be hard, at least.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out.
Yeah, I mean, just remember how we thought Starship would look like 3-4 years ago, or then called BFR, and imagine look at how we now think it will look like for the first orbital flight. Like, it changes so much.
Yeah, and don't for a second think that what you see right now is its final form. It's going to continue to change and evolve as they continue building and testing prototypes.
Yeah, I mean, look at the first flights of Falcon 9. Like, look at the first orbital flight of Falcon 9.
It looks so
and compare that. Yeah, it still had the, what was it called? Not the grid, the 3x3 engine grid at the bottom. It wasn't
it wasn't even an octagrid yet. It was a weird cube type deal.
Yeah, it looks so different from today. It basically is a different rocket at that point. And yeah, compare that to today's Falcon 9, which is like a gorgeous rocket.
Let's see. Ground Truth is saying, I think the parabola-shaped frost on the bottom of the booster is because that is the side most impacted by the sun. I think that is plausible. Although, we're not getting the same type of behavior on the methane tank up there, so... Question mark?
Mysteries.
Here's another mystery. Andrew is asking, where's the flight computer located on the booster?
There's more than one. It's not just one flight computer like in the Apollo days where the Saturn V was controlled by the, what was that, Saturn computer or whatever? It was in the third stage, and it was that big ring computer. Lots of different parts of it, and it's all over the place. Watched them install wires in the top, at the bottom, and next to the FTS systems. I mean, it's lots of little pieces all over the place.
Pretty sure on Starship it is on the top of the forward dome, and I think it's the same for the booster, but I am just guessing based on how it is for Starship.
We had another top vent there.
And we could hear it even.
Yeah.
Frost is still increasing on the methane tank, albeit slowly.
But to be fair, they're getting close to the end of the window with only 70 minutes remain in this window.
Still plenty of time to do some more testing, but we are getting into the home stretch here.
Yeah. We say that until they extend the road closure, by the way.
Come
Say
on,
what?
Adrian. That's never happened before. They never, ever.
When did they ever extend the road closure?
Oh,
Yep.
Never do that.
Or just went overtime?
And they also never just go straight through the end of the closure and willy-nilly.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they're at least nice to tell us that they extended the closure. Sometimes just, yeah. I mean, it ended, but what you're going to do?
Hamster Space Nerd is saying, how many cranes have there been at Starbase? I don't think anyone's actually done a count. Also, what are the two long tanks that are flat on the ground? Those are liquid methane tanks.
Playing the rewind game here again.
Oh, fun. I love that game.
And it's still rising.
Hey.
Very slowly, by the way. It's very slowly rising.
You know, the fun thing is, the longer the stream goes on, the more likely we are that my MacBook Pro gets delivered while we are... And look at that. Look at that venting from...
Oh.
That look like a depress? What do you think, Adrian?
Yeah, it looks very similar to what we saw before when it depressed.
You can see all four of those vents up at the top of the forward section there, blasting away. We can see three of them. One of them is going to be 180 degrees on the other side of the booster, but I bet you that one's going as well. I just want to listen to this for a second. This sounds amazing. Yep, and that is a long, sustained vent there. I would also like to point out... Yeah, good point. I'd also like to point out that underneath the launch table there, that condensation plume is sort of just, I guess, falling ambiently down. It is not really falling down with any force, if that makes any sense. Previously, during today's testing, we've seen it... maybe it's just a larger volume, and so it looked like that, but it looked more like there was some force coming, you know. The gas is being propelled downwards, and now it is sort of just ambiently falling away from cold stuff at the bottom of the booster. I don't know really quite what we can deduce from that, if anything, but different behaviors as testing continues. What was that black thing falling off? Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I saw that as well. I just rewinded. It looked like some sort of, like, it looked paperish in the way it fell down, because it wasn't really like dropping, it was more floating down.
Yeah, it fell very slowly, so nothing heavy or anything, just maybe like a piece of covering or some sort of fabric that was around covering something up. Didn't look like it was mission critical or anything, just we observed an event. An event was observed.
By the way, in the last 3 minutes, the frost ring increased.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's So, what this might be comparable to is like, if you remember these test tank streams, these long ones, sometimes you see a lot of venting when they actually start filling it up more.
Yeah, I was going to say, does that mean we could be looking at a fast fill type situation occurring here?
Yes, like it at least it doesn't look like a detank, because it obviously didn't detank. So let's see what happens, I guess. Yeah, look at that. You can see the small venting cloud from the bottom of the booster here.
You can see there's a vent over by the tank farm that's doing its thing.
Yeah. Left vent is going again.
Yeah, and the frost is definitely continuing to increase on that methane tank. You can even see it's not frost, but there's a discoloration about halfway up it, where it looks like it's colder.
So it might be the frost is actually like the liquid is up that already, but the tank still takes time to freeze up at that point. But what is also interesting is that the ground line stopped again. So no frost at the ground line right now.
Yeah, good eye. Good point. VDiv, thank you so much for the very generous support. They say, wish Jack's whimsical comments would come back in the daily videos. Appreciate all of your work and sleepless nights to keep us informed. Well, thank you, VDiv, for the generous support. I wish those comments would come back too, but I'm not even going to get started on that. That's a tale for another time. Mike Smith says the item that was falling was its passport. Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Somebody pick it up.
It was the launch license. Fast.
No!
That's hilarious.
Find it.
Yeah, it's definitely still going up. Ah, there you can see the ground line now. Freezing a bit in direction again.
Yep, sure enough.
Only a bit. It's interesting to watch. Kind of stop myself from thinking about Mario, like the early Mario Brothers games right now, with the two eyes, like the two eyes on the frost ring. It looks like a block from Mario. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, it does.
I cannot stop myself from seeing that right now.
I think those things were called thwomps, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, that's their name. Like, it looks like a thwomp. And I can't unsee that. It's stuck in my mind.
It sure looks friendly, though.
Yeah, it looks very happy.
Bird.
Bird.
Bird cam.
Not as cool as Pelicam.
Pelicam, I still miss the Pelicam. We need to hire that Pelican to stand there in front of Fleet Cam full time.
100%.
It had so much fun.
A lot of vapor coming from underneath the booster now. I wonder what that specific vent there is in between the two GSE tanks is.
Yeah.
That's rather fascinating.
Kind of want to get like a plumbing schematic or whatever, like engineering schematic they have, because they have like so many pipes and valves over there between the tanks and stuff. I'm sure if we knew what that valve was, we could tell you exactly what that is. But alas.
Look at the plume coming out of the bottom of the booster right now, like the nitrogen plume.
Yeah, that is significant.
They are for sure doing a lot of testing on this booster.
Someone in chat is asking if we could describe what we're talking about when you mentioned the ground lines. Maybe Michael, next time we change views, we'll be able to notate on screen what we're talking about, because they're not quite as visible from this side, but from the other side, you can see those ground lines sort of emitting their own condensation. I don't think they're really quite doing it right this second. There's just a little bit, but if you look on the right side of the screen, there are those 4 subcoolers, and next to the GSE tanks, you can see it's like 4 little white circle things down there. That is near where those ground lines are, right, Adrian?
Yes, and basically it goes from there to the pad, because it's like, just to what I think it is, it's just the pipe that goes from the I mean, there needs to be some sort of pipe that goes from the tanks to the pad to just bring the liquids there. Yeah, there goes the cycle, and basically it goes from there to the pad and feeds the nitrogen, in this case, to the booster. And since the nitrogen is getting contact with the pipes, it then starts condensation from the pipe, and you can see basically it moving into the direction of the booster while the condensation is forming.
It's interesting to me that the one of the legs that we're looking at right now for the launch mount has pipes running up it, and I was kind of waiting to see if those would frost up. I don't think we saw any sort of behavior like that, which is sort of interesting. They must be really well insulated.
Yeah, some parts of the pad are really good insulated and are not really emitting any kind of like venting, and some parts are just exploding and venting. It's very different depending on the part.
Can we talk about the condensation we're seeing on the methane tank right now? It is a very odd shape. It's almost pointy.
Yeah, it's weird.
The pointy end is not pointing up, so I don't know how that methane vents, or that methane.
I mean, it's kind of pointing up.
Is it pointing up? The flamey end's not pointing down though, so I don't know.
But I don't know. It's really looking. I never saw that before. Interesting.
Thaddeus is asking, hey guys, I love your streams. I was wondering where I can... Oh, where did it go? I was wondering where I can get information about upcoming events on Starship, like this test. This is not a static fire test, by the way. This is just a cryo-proof test. Before they happen. Greetings from Germany. Well, NASASpaceflight.com is a really good place for Starship info, of course. So is NASASpaceflight on Twitter. Chris B is on top of everything, and he's the one who runs that account. And of course, there is NextSpaceflight, which is an app that is developed and run by our very own Michael Baylor, which has really good resources when it comes to Starship and all launches. So those are some options for you there.
It's really cool because you have the Starship tab on NextSpaceflight, which shows you like all the road closures, and that's really useful.
It really is. It was a really cool angle, seeing the condensation plume illuminated by the sun like that.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
You can see the condensation coming from the booster QD area too, which is nifty.
But then again, you can see how much less condensation it's there compared to other parts. So it's really weird how it's not consistent. I think you can see the pipe on the right leg right now, on the second to right leg, that is partially frosty and partially not.
Yeah, you're right. Look at that.
Really interesting. Also, is this like it looks like the nitrogen is emitting from like multiple openings. Could this be raptors?
That's what it seems like.
Ooh. Ooh.
It certainly seems like that plume is being emitted from raptors as part of the whole engine chill process.
Yeah, like testing it right now. Looks like it, right?
It really does. This reminds me a lot of some of the Booster 3 testing that we saw.
I'm just getting information by Michael that this white part there might not be frost on the pipe, but insulation. Just to throw it out here, just we don't give false information here.
Nice.
But yeah, looks really cool.
UR100N says, "Thank Michael Baylor on our behalf. The next spaceflight app is a godsend to us." Thank you, Michael, for the next spaceflight app. It is really a great app and a great website.
I just love how it has the Starship tab.
Yep.
Yeah, there's all the other stuff in their Starship. It's like, thank you, Michael. That's how it should be.
Yeah, when I'm doing research for one of our videos or what have you, I almost always just go to next spaceflight. What day did that happen? All right, cool. Moving on. It's very helpful.
Yeah.
Look,
absolutely.
The tank that is venting now is a different tank. It's the leftmost tank instead of that liquid nitrogen tank. So I wonder if they're doing some sort of test of individual tanks at the orbital tank farm.
Interesting thought, yeah.
Or maybe they just expended all the nitrogen from the one and they're using nitrogen from one of the LOX tanks at this point. Who knows?
Running out of nitrogen. And it stopped. We talked too much about it.
I can't help but think about the person who SpaceX, like who is SpaceX's contact at the organization where they get their consumables from. I know they're making their own nitrogen and oxygen, but still they have to get some of that stuff delivered at any point. And I just imagine that person being like, "Yep, I sell nitrogen and nitrogen accessories," and SpaceX is like, "We need 20 tankers the next month," and they're like, "Huh?"
Like, we're used to a hospital needing a half a tanker every 6 months. What do you mean?
It also would be good if you could refill like on a daily basis sometimes if we need it.
Yeah.
They're like, huh?
Daily? What are you doing with all that nitrogen? What a cool shot with the evening light. And it looks like that tank has started up again. You can see it venting even from this distance.
In this shot are so many Starship prototypes, by the way.
Yeah, I see Starhopper, I see the GSE-4 test tank, I see Booster 3, I see Ship 20. Good old Star.
And Booster 4.
And Booster 4.
Obviously. Well, we just had a road closure extension. At least they told us. It is now extended to 8 p.m. So we've got another 2 hours on top of the previously scheduled. We have 3 hours to go.
Woo! Boat.
We jinxed it.
Did jinx it. Boat cam. Woo!
Imagine driving there like with shipping there with the boat and you just have good spots to look at Starship.
Just not having any idea that SpaceX is a thing over there. Being like, what? They building water towers over there? What are they doing with those water towers? Views. I'm really loving the sunset views here. Stainless steel is probably these stainless steel tanks are probably my favorite kind of material to photograph. I can't talk. Photograph in the late afternoon, the golden hour photography, because they just light up all these beautiful different colors, and you get like a really pretty sunset. Some really cool reflections off that steel. It's just so gorgeous.
I hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, you hate it? Oh, come on, Jack.
No, I really do. The hot spot that you get that is like unavoidably blown out really irks me. I much prefer Twilight, but that's me. To each their own.
Well, no, I'm sorry. You're so wrong about that. You need to get like a 12-bit color camera and shoot in RAW. That's what you need to do.
Oh, I definitely shoot in RAW. We'll just have to fist fight about this later.
Okay, sounds good. I'll bring my boxing gloves.
I'm not even qualified to listen to this conversation.
It'll be a fist fight with sock and boppers. Does anyone remember those? Just me? All right, never mind.
I remember reading about them in history books, Jack. They're...
Wow.
Nice. Great burn.
Yeah, anytime. Although there's no
Things
burn
that
today.
cannot burn today. Starship.
Exactly. Hey, there you go. Even better.
That plume of condensation from underneath the launch mount has subsided again. It's still going, but not at the same volume we were seeing earlier.
So we basically can, from that, be pretty sure that it's some sort of valve testing going on there. Because why would it suddenly stop and start again if not?
Jim Cabot, thanks for the support. They say, what a cool day. Ed Harrigan, thank you for the support. They say, what was the gas that vented upward in recent venting? Well, it would have to be nitrogen. Because that's all they're using today. And Michael is saying the bottom venting. Is that an engine chill, a condensation on a QD, or leakage of the engines? I think that's going to be engine chill.
To clarify, there will not be something after engine chill on this stream. Like, they won't ignite these. There won't be any fire. They will just make sure everything works with this booster using nitrogen, and nothing else will happen in terms of igniting any Raptors. Just to point that out again.
No, thank you for that, just so people know what to expect. Whole lot of people telling us the road closure has been extended till 8 p.m. local, we know. And now everyone else does, too. We have 3 more hours, just under, of testing available to SpaceX this evening.
Just can't get over how pretty it is.
Yeah, you gotta love that golden hour lighting.
Mm-hmm. Especially on the stainless steel. I'm so surprised you don't like that.
Nope, hate it.
Oh, I mean, I'll agree with you. The twilight, like when you get that twilight gradient from like orange to purple, and it's just gorgeous. That is beautiful. But the golden hour light, it's so pretty.
I just want to see it in person. Like, I'm sitting in a commentary call here with 2 people that had like so much time in Boca, and I just want to see it.
Just
soon,
a matter
Adrian.
of time, Adrian.
Soon.
Yeah, soon.
Weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, late 2022. That's the deadline.
Good. Well, at this rate, you might be here for Orbital.
I mean,
Trigiv is asking, on how short a notice can they deliver an overpressure notice? Could they deliver them, say, only 2 hours before? That is a good question for Mary, because I know she has gotten some, like, the morning of. And that is less than ideal, because you want to notify residents, with as much time as possible. But I do believe they have given out some overpressure notices relatively close to testing for that day.
But they're not going to give an overpressure. They're not going to give an overpressure notice right now for today.
Nope.
Guarantee that. We are far past that window.
That, and there's no methane in the orbital tank farm, so...
Hey, there you go.
many reasons for no fire today. Oh, that will also be interesting because with the suborbital farms, you always see when there's methane in there and liquid oxygen because the tank farm is kind of like in this steady state of working. And I wonder how this farm will maybe look when there's methane and liquid oxygen in there. Like I want to see the idle state of a fully operational tank farm.
Yeah, that's going to be really exciting to see.
I like vents.
I like flamies that are going in the right direction.
Bob Smith is asking, is Adrian going to join the Beard Club?
Ooh.
I mean, if we have time until 2035 or so, I could probably do that. But no. Like there's my beard is not really cooperative and growing.
Well, Adrian, I think I'll have to join your club there. We'll start the non-beard club over here at NSF. Jack and all
Yeah,
that can be part of the beard club.
And then we
feel
can
like
rumble, like in West Side Story?
Oh yes.
I'm in.
I feel like I'm more the not shaved club. That's like it's not beard,
okay.
but it's not shaved as well. So
Okay. Well, I'm definitely in the babyface club. So wherever that club is.
Here's a question. Lego Flight Cams is asking, would they do a pre-burner test? Ooh, listening to that.
that was the top vents.
I just like the way that sounds.
Yeah, I love the very like there's this. You can hear there's a tone going up, and I love that.
So Lego Flight Cams is asking, would they do a pre-burner test on the booster first, or a go straight to static fire? Pre-burner
I
test
expect
is
a
not.
pre-burner test.
Yeah, that's not a bad guess.
Yeah. Like for the first time you ignite like 9 engines or more, I expect them to maybe make sure that every pre-burner is working before that. But again, just a guess. An educated one in this case because we saw it before, but still a guess. Is the ice... I feel like the ice is going down quite significantly. You rewind but like the tip we saw before, like the pointy end is gone.
Yeah, doing an A/B test myself, that frost is definitely going down and rapidly. If y'all are wondering what's going on today, seems like we've had 2 cycles of a cryo-proof test. Unknown whether or not that test was successful or why there was more than 1 cycle of it. Not the kind of thing we have insight into. But still, it looks what appeared to be a productive day of testing and data gathering.
Birds.
Swarm of birds.
Hey.
I do like swarms of things.
There's swarm of raptors going around in Boca, I heard.
Phil Rogers asking, is there any chance of SpaceX running liquid oxygen and methane lines across and down the road from the production to the tank farm? Plausible. I would say that's plausible. Who knows what the future holds? Ryan Bradley's asking if I ever sleep. Sometimes. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Sleep can be rare here at NASASpaceflight sometimes.
He hasn't slept since he ordered his MacBook Pro. He's been sitting, refreshing the website.
I'm sitting here waiting for it to, it should be any second now. I mean,
Is it out for delivery?
It was out for delivery yesterday.
What? Oh,
so
no.
I'm starting to get nervous, but anyways.
Go track down the driver. Like,
yeah, I mean,
hey.
right? Let's see. MTieFan62 is asking, how close is this waterway to the orbital pad area, and would it be closed to marine traffic if this were a launch day? I believe it is either in the exclusion zone or right on the edge of it. Pretty sure they closed the channel.
Exclusion. I believe they leave the channel open.
Yeah? Okay, I could be wrong.
I thought the point of, well, I was under the impression that at least for the suborbital launches, that the port was supposed to be open, and perhaps that will change with future orbital flights with a full booster. But I was under the impression that the channel was left open. But
Yep, Michael in the back is agreeing with you. So channel open.
Ooh. Nice.
I do remember seeing boats going back and forth on the day when they did the suborbital flight tests, but I didn't know if they closed the channel during the flight itself or what, but let's see. Sounds like it's been open. Oh, and the distance is about 5 miles, give or take. Right on the edge of that zone.
God, the views are wonderful right now.
Yeah, this golden hour light is wonderful.
Definitely my favorite.
Nice and contrasty. Alan Curtis in chat says, my MacBook Pro's in the bushes next to the walkway next to your door. Thanks for that, buddy. So yeah, we've got a good chunk of time left in the window here. Remains to be seen what is going to happen next. What was that? Did you guys see that?
No.
Yeah, what?
There was like a bird flew directly above the camera.
Oh, weird.
Just like we got like a wing flap for like 2 frames. That was interesting. Look at that gorgeous orange light. Oh, hey, guess what? Frost appears to be increasing.
Oh. That's surprising, at least.
Actually, no, now I'm less sure. I'm going back like 5 minutes or so. Yeah, okay, I'm less sure.
It seems like there's still like it's very calm at the launch site at this point.
Rough Rider Show, thanks for the support. now and always. They're asking what I'm going to do with the box from a MacBook Pro. I'm going to burn it, so you don't get it. Just going to set it on fire and dance around its ashes. And
Is he collecting Apple boxes?
yes, and I told him I would give him
Hey.
some, and I have not sent them because I'm a trash person. And so now it's a running joke.
Ah, got it.
Now you're caught up.
Yeah, thanks for the update. Every single angle is beautiful right now.
I'm looking at the Starbase live stream right now just because I wanted to see all the different angles. And oh my goodness. I love
Imagine
golden
being
hours
Michael.
so much.
Imagine being Michael and having to pick one right now.
Ugh. He's so hard. Michael should just push the button a bunch of times and have him cycle through
Venting.
all of the different views.
Yep, more methane tank venting.
Do we know if the road's still closed? Yeah. Yeah. Just got that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, there we go.
Wow. Oh, that is pretty.
Didn't know that we were filming the new Mad Max in Boca.
You win. I think you win the stream today, Adrian.
Yep, that was a good one.
Thank you.
Though they'd be stupid not to film it here. Have to work around the road closures, but it would be a beautiful place to film a movie.
Well, Nick, you were saying that you just went over and looked at Starbase Live so you can get all of the angles and see what was going on right now during this beautiful lighting. I think with the frost continuing to recede, it would be a good time for us to call it for the day for the commentated stream. But that's the beauty about Starbase Live is while this stream may end, you don't have to go home. You can hop on over to Starbase Live and keep an eye on events. So I think that is what we'll do. I think we'll wrap it up today. Today on the stream, we had a bunch of people. We had Adrian. You've been here the whole, or no, you've been here since what? Since Ian left, huh?
Yes, I basically stepped in for Ian after he had to go.
Sure enough. And so Ian was also here. Thank you to him for being on the stream. We also had Thomas Berghart on the stream for a little bit earlier, and we heard Das's voice, I think, even briefly. Also on the stream today has been Nick. Nick, thanks for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for listening to my shenanigans and all my photography exclamations as I'm looking at this golden hour that's so beautiful.
Sure enough, and thank you to Michael for being in the background, taking care of operating things. And I'm Jack Beyer, whatever you want to call me for NASASpaceflight. You can't stay here, you don't have to go home, but you can go hang out at Starbase Live. So let's all go hang out at Starbase Live. Thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks to all our new members for the support.
Have a good day, everyone.